Hallo, Heiner.
Early bird.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm reminding you.
I'm fine. Are you talking to Alexa?
Alexa is talking to me. She's reminding me I got to get on Zoom. Oh, feed the puppies. I just fed the puppies.
Well, you can now operate your mind and your brain out. Alexa will do everything for you.
Some things.
Why do you want Alexa to do everything?
Not bad. It's halfway decent. Not as smart as I want it to be, but still better than not having a reminder. Barry, missed you last week.
Yeah, what happened last week? I think I forgot what day of the week it was, or I don't remember, but somehow or other it slipped my mind, or I don't know what happened.
Julie, you were here, right? But actually very silent, I recall.
So Barry, you need Alexa.
I need a secretary. The thing is that I never.
What is the secretary? What is the secretary thing you speak of?
Somebody who says, Barry, it's 11 o'clock. You're supposed to be there, here or there, or you made an appointment and you forgot to watch the clock.
That's what Alexa does for me. Yes.
Oh, that's what Alexa does. Okay.
You have my mobile phone with a calendar as well, and that calendar can be set to remind you every week.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing you have to remind yourself of is
to do that.
System. That's
How do you do that if you've got to remember to set Alexa as well?
No, you can set that on a recurring basis one time, and it'll just do it from here on out, if it's a regular pattern.
A friend of mine just married. That's an alternative.
Wait, your friend married Alexa? Actually, yeah, well, I won't say any more on that one.
Alexa is a freestanding smart speaker.
It's the very first that came out, and it connects to all of Amazon's back-end infrastructure.
Oh.
So interestingly, third parties can create quote unquote add-ons or skills that you can add to Alexa. So for example, there's a weather skill. Alexa, what's the weather today? Oh, sorry, I call it computer. Computer, what's the weather today?
Computer, do you work for the CIA?
In Camino Island, 50 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Today, you can look for rainy weather with a high of 52 degrees and a low of 42 degrees.
So I can also say something like, Alexa, remind me to call Barry in about 3.
That's something like, but I'm always working on how I say things and I might not have it right.
Computer, remind me to talk to Barry in 3 hours.
Okay, I'll remind you in 3 hours.
There you go. That way, it's not up here.
Computer, okay? Stop working for the CIA.
Yes, I got like 9 different Alexa devices. I live in transparency. They can know when I go take a shit. You know, it doesn't really matter. Okay.
There's just one problem with Alexa. On my Google News page, it has my local weather on the right side of the page, and I can glance at it.
What is this news page you speak of?
Google News.
Oh, Google News. Okay.
Yeah. The problem, I never used to watch the weather report on TV or listen to it on radio because I couldn't memorize it as they spoke it. So after they gave the weather, I go, wait a minute, what did they say? I have a very poor ability to memorize rapidly spoken speech. So I would rather see it in writing. I can stare at it and go back and look at it again if I forget it 5 minutes later.
Send Tyra 10 or 20 bucks or 50 bucks. Okay, have her make you a felt item that looks like a yellow sun and a felt item that looks like a cloud. Okay, just have her send you those 2 items. Hold them in your hand when you talk to Alexa or read the news, and then put the other one away when you actually figure it out.
I can look out the window and see if the sun is out.
At the current moment, that might work. Yes.
I mean, I have a window right off to the side here. I can tell if it's sometimes I fall asleep, even sitting at the computer. I'll fall asleep, and when I open my eyes, I'll go, what day is this? What time is this? Is this morning, noon? You know, is it 1 o'clock in the morning or is it 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And I have to go look at the little, you know, time thing on my computer to find out what day it is. Like today is Saturday. I kept thinking today's Monday. No, it's not Monday. It's Saturday.
You'd be a perfect candidate to go to the Mars or something like that, Barry.
Well, yeah, I do live in cyberspace. I've lived in cyberspace for 30 years. In fact, the very first cyberspace community that we built was a simulated world that was a space station, an Earth space station. It's called Siberian City, and it was in orbit around the Earth. We lived in it. It was all done in text in those days. But
All right, tell me what you know about Werner Vinge, Barry.
Werner Vinge, V-I-N-G-E.
Yeah. I think he was one of the very first, right? Wasn't he, to write about cyberspace?
Oh, I
There's
thought
another one also.
cyberspace. Well, I can't remember the. Well, one problem I have is I can't bring up names off the top of my head. I got to go look them up. I think cyberspace was in a book, but I don't remember the name of the author. I know the name of the author. I just don't remember the name of the author.
Yeah, it's either Werner or somebody else. My memory's not that great either.
There was a bunch of guys on the Well. Remember the Well?
Computer,
Oh,
who coined the term cyberspace?
Here's something I found on the web. According to archive.org, the word cyberspace was coined by the science fiction author William Gibson when he sought a name to describe his vision of a global computer network, linking all people, machines, and sources of information in the world, and through which one could move or navigate as through a virtual space.
who was it?
William Gibson.
Oh, yeah, Gibson. I was thinking Bruce. Was it
William
Bruce
Ford
Sterling?
Gibson,
Who was the other guy in cyber?
Conway, South Carolina.
Computer,
An
stop.
American-
Well, I would have also said Gibson. So maybe it's true.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
computers
memorize
got
that.
the web to be the authority. Whether or not you take it as authority, that's up to you.
Well, I do that too, but I look it up myself. So I
You
can
believe in the web.
No, I believe in the sources. If I
believe
go
in
to
the web.
Wikipedia, I don't read the article so much as the references at the bottom. And the references will point me to places that I didn't know existed. And so I started doing my own research based on the bibliography, but not the article.
Hey, I'm just kind of curious. Any of the rest of you science fiction readers, or used to be?
Very little.
Watcher.
Trainer, who's your favorite science fiction author?
I can tell you my first one. This was Ran Dark, like Perry Rhodan. But my favorite is Stanislav Lem.
Ah, Solaris, right?
And
You were
Did
then-
you see the
mentioning
movie?
Heinlein. You were mentioning Heinlein the other day about Fair Witness, right?
Yes.
And I knew Fair Witness from another context. I didn't know that it went back to Heinlein, but I knew the term and what it meant. At least
Stranger in a Strange Land. Who here has not read it?
I haven't read it. I'm
I actually
illiterate.
recommend reading Stranger in a Strange Land. It'll take you back to the 70s and what the 70s culture thought was going to be, interesting in the future. The plot twist, and I'll just spend 20 seconds on this, is two astronauts, the first to travel to Mars, actually have a baby on Mars. And for some reason, they die or some accident happens. I don't remember that part. So the baby is actually raised by Martians.
Oh,
30 years later, a second expedition goes, finds him, brings him back, and that's why he's a stranger in a strange land. So he's taught all this stuff by Martians who are eons and eons and eons more evolved than we are. And then he comes here and experiences Earth.
Yeah.
That's the
that's
setup.
me. Do you know the song "Take My Hand, I'm a Stranger in Paradise"? It's from the 1950s. I don't remember if it was South Pacific or what it's from, but my avatar, one of my avatars on the internet is Barsoom Torque, anthropologist from Mars.
Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Okay.
Did you read
Yeah.
all those series?
No, it turned out that I was reading, I think, a book by Carl Sagan, and Carl Sagan loved science fiction as a kid, and he loved the phrase "the hurtling moons of Barsoom."
Okay. Do you know
Barsoom
what
was-
Barsoom means?
It's the name for Mars in
Yes. And who's the main character in Edgar Rice's series?
the one that they did the Disney movie on
Yeah, that was a horrible movie.
Flop.
John Carter.
Yeah, John. Yeah, they did a movie. Disney did the John Carter movie. It was a commercial flop. But
Okay, I'm
that-
sorry. I think we bored Joel. I think Joel decided to go somewhere else.
Oh, but you know what? Oliver Sacks and Temple Grandin. Oliver Sacks,
Those are names
the
recently in the news. Yes.
So so Oliver Sacks was a neuroscientist who wrote a lot of books, and one of his books is called "The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat," and in that each chapter was a different interesting subject that he worked with, and one of them was Temple Grandin, the famous woman who wrote a book about autism, and she had told Oliver Sacks that she felt like she was an anthropologist on Mars, and that was the title of the chapter. And so I stole that and I said, my avatar is Barsoom Torque, anthropologist from Mars. And I said, I came down to this planet 75 years ago to study, Homo sapiens, Homo schleppians, and I've been studying them ever. And
Okay.
I had this whole character.
If that's your persona, I think you would actually be even more interested in reading Stranger in a Strange Land.
Probably so.
Very.
It's the origin.
It's only this thick, okay?
Yeah, that's pretty thick.
Hey, Kayla, how are you? Joel, hopefully we didn't bore you too much. You can return.
Good. How are you guys? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's January
January.
2nd already.
Yeah.
So you don't even know what day it is either.
Yeah.
And Glenn, how be you?
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I'm trying this microphone. It didn't
Oh.
work on the previous.
Is that a Blue
It didn't
Yeti?
work. I think so. Yeah, it's a Blue Yeti. So, but I've
Those
had
are
it
very
for a
expensive.
while.
Is it what, $100 microphone or something?
Yeah, maybe about that.
It's
But the
not a
thing is,
ribbon. It's not
well,
a ribbon mic, is it?
what does that mean?
So in the
Ribbon.
early days of radio and TV broadcasting, the microphones were a big deal, and there were like 3 or 4 technologies. One was called a ribbon mic because it was the ribbon that vibrated with the audio, and that was the one that's shaped like the one you have, the kind of the bullet shape. And that was a favorite one. Yeah, that looks exactly, except that it's sleeker. But there was a model like that CBS favored way back 40s or 50s. And it was one of the best mics because it had some of the best audio quality. But there were, like, for example, Arthur Godfrey. I don't know if you know who that is. He had his own mic and he would only use his own mic. And it was one of those styles, just like you have, except you can go look it up. It's same bullet shape.
I feel a little bit left out of the game. Sam, you asked me, and you didn't ask me why. Because Stanislav Lem wrote the book on the Futurological Congress, and he projects everything which is going on now and will be going on in future in convening and conferencing.
Stanislav Lem.
Yes, Stanislav Lem wrote this.
Yeah.
And the other, I will show it to you now, is the Bernsteinsche Volksbücher. I think I mentioned it before. It is what Einstein was reading when he was a boy. And from him, he got all these futuristic, crazy ideas of open-ended impossibilities. So it is like if you go to a library, it's 1 meter or whatever, stories for young children every weekend. Over.
Yeah, Heiner,
Naturwissenschaftliche.
Heiner,
Yeah,
besides Barsoom Torque, I have another avatar, Maimash the Self-Begotten.
Uh-huh.
You recognize that one, yes?
I don't.
No,
So
haven't heard.
Stanislav Lem wrote a book called The Siberiad. And the Siberiad is, well, it's all, I guess you'd say science fantasy. I'm not sure what the genre is. But he had these 2 constructor robots of the future, Trurl and Claudius, I think the names were. And there was this high-tech junk pile. And in this high-tech junk pile, a bunch of stuff is kind of, bouncing around. And this AI emerges happenstantially out of this junk pile. And this AI is called Maimash the Self-Begotten. And I fell in love with this character. And I wanted to make an AI character on this learning communities, Micromuse. So I created Mimosh the Self-Begotten, and he was a puppet of mine. So I operated him, like a Jim Henson puppet, and he purported to be an AI. And so it was kind of the reverse Turing test. I wanted to see if I could pretend to be an AI and fool people. And I have a fabulous dialogue that I saved from those days where people would come on and they would try to trick me up, like you do the Turing test. And the idea was I was trying to be so authentic that they couldn't tell the difference. And there were some really funny dialogues I had with naive people who didn't know that I was running Mimosh the Self-Begotten. If you're interested, I'll give you the link. You can read it. It's pretty funny. It's not very long.
Okay. There's Jaswinder. We're going to have to repeat all of that for Jaswinder's benefit or detriment.
You may not be familiar
Joel.
with all these references.
How are you, Joel? Jaswinder's trying to come in twice.
Maybe that's a tool for thinking to invent these characters and sort of use them as a way to, it's a little bit differently.
Exactly. That's exactly why I did it. I would create dialogues with these alter ego characters. There's two Jaswinders, these twins today. But
Moving in
it
duality.
was exactly that way. I had Moulton, the Schmegegi scientist, which is the real me. I had Barsoom Torque, the anthropologist from Mars. I had Mimosh, the Self-Begotten. I had Montana Mouse, who was the journalist. And then I had Gastron Bombeson, who was the villain. And a few others. And it was just fun to write dialogues involving.
I'm imagining your childhood right now, Barry.
So the next question is, who coined the term avatar and when?
Shall I ask?
Bruce
Alexa?
Sterling, maybe?
Maybe, but I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking Sam.
Oh.
Take some guesses and then we'll ask Alexa.
So I'm going to say Bruce Sterling because that's the only name I can actually think of right now.
Concept of avatar is older than writing. It's always been around as far as writing is concerned.
I mean, you had deities, all through culture. You had deities, they're avatars.
Yes, that is exactly what they are.
I mean, you've got Satan and divinities and angels and cherubs. They're all avatars, right?
Okay, I'm going to ask. Computer, what is the first known reference to the word avatar?
What is known and what is in darkness is
Here's
not the
something
same
I found on the
thing.
web.
Truth isn't in the
According
light.
to wiseajit.com, the use of the word avatar as a term for a user's virtual skin was popularized by Neil Stephenson in his book Snow Crash.
Neil Stephenson, book Snow Crash.
Yeah, I remember that name that you
Neil
say.
Stephenson's books include Snow Crash.
Computer, cancel.
But was this in literature, like science fiction? Or
This
was
is
it you?
this is the explanation for how it got popular. It didn't say that was the first instance, unfortunately.
Yes, I was curious who coined it for our computer, virtual reality, and whatever world.
Well, that's what the computer was saying. Neil Stephenson.
Stevenson, yeah, it's Snow Crash.
Snow Crash. Anyway, Jaswinder, welcome. Joel, welcome. Joel hasn't said much today yet. Kayla is lurking. Kayla, are you in a walk? Perhaps. Or are you already moving into your new house?
Oh no, I'm still in Somis. I haven't moved yet. Escrow will close probably February 6th. That's the projected date.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there are a lot of things
Talking
to
of
talk about,
avatars.
but then,
Want to know what they are? That's what they are.
That's an avatar?
Yes, top and bottom of existence reaching down to touch each other.
It's like alter egos.
In a sense.
No. It's good to have
Are they
alter egos.
Jungian archetypes as well?
Of course, because everything is one thing. One thing that is many.
Yeah, but that's not useful in
things by
conversation.
simplifying them, you'll confuse everybody.
If it's only one thing, then we wouldn't actually have to talk to each other.
That's understanding the geometric functionalities.
Okay, so I got a whole pack of stuff that's been backed up from several weeks about what we could talk about, but what are you guys interested in talking about? or should I go through my? I'll go through my list last. Of that.
I want to talk about Kayla.
Why?
You asked me what I want to talk about.
The answer is why not?
I picked a subject.
Kayla, may we speak about you?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, there's one idea. Any others?
Oh,
Talk
can't I
about
jump
anything
in
you
now?
want.
I've got several notes I made with the help of Kayla as to why we anyway, carry on while I look for that. Carry on.
Talking about very first, you know, the very first talk radio show ever on AM radio? Who knows the very first American AM radio that was licensed for commercial AM radio?
Now you start qualifying it. The very first radio show was in the United Kingdom.
What year?
Wait a minute. Wasn't it Marconi on the left coast of the United States, transmitting just north of the Bay Area to, let's see, where was that? Some island in the Pacific?
Atlantic.
No, wait a minute. It's from California. It's in the Pacific.
I was there. There's a place in New Jersey close to where I lived, and I used to go walking up there. And it's the place where Marconi built his first transmitter, first to ships in the Atlantic, and then eventually got all the way to the United Kingdom. But that was just the first voice, or I don't think it was it might have been telegraph. I think that was telegraph, the Marconi station. But the first commercial AM radio station was in Pittsburgh. It was called KDKA. And I knew about it because I had read about it in the history books of technology. And one night when I'm maybe 9 or 10, 11 years old, I've got an AM radio next to my bed in Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm turning the dial at night and I hear a call sign, KDKA. It knocks my socks off. They're still on the air. And then I start listening to them, and they have at night, on weeknights, a show called Party Line, and it's hosted by John and Wendy King. And what they do is they take telephone calls from the listeners. They don't put the listeners on the air. So John or Wendy listens to the caller and then repeats what they're interested in, and that's what they talk about for 5 minutes. And it was the beginning of talk radio. It was fabulous. 1950. I was listening to KDK in Pittsburgh, hopping all the way, across a couple of states, when the heaviside layer was high enough. And that was the
shortwave preceded that, right? So there would have been people listening to shortwave all over the world, right?
Oh yeah. But I'm talking about talk radio where the listening public can call in on the telephone and have a conversation with people, the host on the air, and then other people would call in and provide more information.
Barry, is that your proposed topic for today?
Not necessarily. I
was asking, what would people like to talk about today?
Oh, that's the reason I brought that up is because John and Wendy King, when they introduced their show, said, we're here to talk about anything you want to talk about. So I'm here to talk about anything you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, I finally got that. Good. All right. Joel, 2 thumbs up. What would you like to speak about, talk about, converse about, dialogue about, argue about?
Barry just said the words.
Just here to talk about whatever people want to talk about.
What's on your mind?
Okay, I guess Kayla's on just Winder's mind. Okay. Who else? Glenn, what would you like to talk about?
I really like that whole whatever's on your mind thing. I can mention a little thing that's on my mind since you talked about avatars. Sometimes it's considered in terms of like a persona. It can be an imaginary persona, but someone that maybe identify with. And it reminds me on Monday, I was frequenting this Eco Lab meeting, and that was very interesting. Some of the people from Open Global Mind, and there we were speaking about roles and the roles in like collaborative projects, maybe similar to what we're doing here, or what could be roles people could have, which could be considered as kind of like avatars or But yeah, that's an interesting take as well.
If
Kind of
everything
a-
is geometry, then the role is a geometry interaction. You need to be the right shape to fulfill that geometry interaction.
Yeah.
Existence creates geometries. We are geometries, each and every one of us. And the lives we've lived has shaped that geometry.
Okay, so the second topic is roles.
I think
And
that
I
connects with the
also-
avatars.
Yeah, I also like this connection to geometry because we can always think of a role in terms of a geometry that's latched onto the world, almost like a.
Okay, so I get the word geometry from Joel. I get role from Glenn. I get Kayla from Just Winder. I get anything from Barry. Heiner, what would you like to talk about?
I have to prepare another session in 20 minutes, so leave me out of that.
I second the roles in geometry, by the way.
Okay,
I like that.
roles in geometry.
Has anybody seen the video where the characters in the video are just triangles and squares and circles? And there's a box with a small opening and they put them in, and each of the geometric figures plays a role in bullying and being intimidated and standing up for themselves. And it's nothing more than just geometric figures having an encounter, and you get the entire emotional dynamic with these characters, these avatars that are nothing more than squares and triangles. And Heiner remembers it. Maybe Heiner can even find it. I don't remember the name of this video.
Well, I remember that the symbols were equated with the sexes, being male or female.
There was a dominance hierarchy, that's for
yeah.
sure. I didn't get that they were gendered, but they were.
Well, this is me, what I'm interpreting.
Were they blue and
Because
pink?
it's only a cross and a circle or whatever, or a dot.
Right. But the point was is that you could project an entire personality by movement of nothing more than just very elementary geometric figures. It was quite dramatic. Maybe somebody can find the video, or maybe I'll find it if I can.
Okay.
remember how to look it up.
Just for the record, then, I'm going to probably just lay on the table here two thoughts that were at the tail end of last week. And so we may not have the continuity to go there now, but it's sooner or later, it might be interesting. The two thoughts were shame and transparency.
Yeah, that's good. I think Tira had brought up shame, or maybe both of you did.
Okay,
I think I have a little write up actually from last week. I'll share it in the chat.
Okay. Would you
It's
like to
quite-
read it?
Well, I think it's maybe a little long, but wait a minute.
Can you,
Oh, well.
Can you just mention the top 2 or 3 key memes?
Yeah, sure. Wait a minute. First, I'll just yeah, okay. Maybe there's a limitation in the chat, isn't there?
Yeah, you can only pay so much.
Oh,
I'll
that
just flash
sucks.
this up just for a few seconds, okay? I'm just saying these are the collected ideas from the proposed topics. So I'm just taking notes here, okay?
Great. I can share the screen briefly if you want, and I'll show you the notes. Or it's in the brain.
You use the brain? Awesome.
Yeah, I began using it. So okay, I can do it quickly. Just a minute. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, it's quite a lot. But participant Sam Hahn, for the first hour or so, yeah, it's a lot of big questions, obviously. Role of village idiot, rebels, information ecology, web page, AI, language, abstractions, scarcity mentality versus abundance mentality, emergence of permaculture, motives, political will. Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff. I mean, we went, but the basic topic was what world would you want to live in? So, but I can share some of it in the chat.
So curiously, would you link this? Is that available on the web, by the way? Because we could link to it from the notes document, or you could just put a link at both ends of that, you know, in the notes document and in your brain. Ideally, that would be nice to connect them.
A link to to the you mean the Google Docs where we
Yes.
have all the material.
Yes, one per session, right? There's always a Google Doc. Hey, David.
David Middlemiss. Hey, good to see you.
David.
Yep.
Yeah, I can
Not
do that a
connected
little
yet.
later. So yeah.
Okay, now David's on audio. Okay, now you can say welcome, David.
Hello, David. Nice to meet you.
David is the one who's in Bangkok, right?
Thailand.
Thailand, yeah. Udon Thani, is that how you say it?
Thailand.
You're on mute, David.
Town. Oh, you're
David, you're still on mute.
muted. I think it was Udon Thani was the town in the 12-hour time zone difference from where I am in the East Coast.
Can't you unmute him, Sam?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me see if I can unmute. I can only ask to unmute now. I cannot actually unmute anyone.
I
So
don't think
they've
you ever
taken
could.
certain
There
operations.
we
That's
go.
it. That's it. Hello, guys.
I can
Hi.
mute somebody, but I cannot unmute them.
Correct.
That's no good.
It's diode.
You must
We're
talk.
actually we're actually on the border of Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, and Myanmar at a temple now, helping out here. We have a 100-acre site. We also have a monastery site with 8 levels with meditation spaces winding up the hillside. So we're looking at we're forming a small international community at the moment. At the moment, it's mainly monks. We have about 200 monks that help, and we've just been accepted by the royal family with our proposals to reawaken the Kok Nong Na, which is a permaculture principle that the late king started for hill tribes, and we hope now to use the temples in each village as the central hubs for permaculture, new technology, and the monks will either wear a pin badge or green, brown, and white robes. There'll also be the orange robes as well, but the brown robes will be for earthworks, the green robes will be for plantsmen, and the white robes will be for the labs to try and we'll be taking tissue cultures, we'll be growing mushrooms, and we'll be stewarding rare plants and endangered plants. And then we're going to try and link with other Buddhist communities across the planet and eco-villages, which we're already connected to steward rare and endangered plants climate matched so that we can protect them in our villages and communities, trying to create a self-sufficiency, then a selfless sufficiency and an abundance across the whole of Thailand. It's now backed by the government and the royal family. I'll send the link to you, Sam, from the Bangkok Post.
Yeah, I think you sent me something a couple of days ago. Plus, you had a pretty long post regarding the initiative, which I did read, by the way. Just want to let you know.
It is a bit long-winded. I hope somebody can cut it down. I'm not the best at shortening things. And being on a Zoom call is miraculous because usually I use smoke signals. I'm quite sort of archaic and when it comes to technology, to be fair.
Okay.
How are you guys all doing?
We're all good. We've actually just had a round where we were collecting topics for conversation today. And I'm going to take about 10 or 15 seconds just to show you what ideas were collected. And so we had these ideas. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Are you seeing the app window or all the rest of my screen as well?
I can see mainly the app window, I think. I can see the green highlighted wording.
Good. So Jaswinder said Kayla is a good topic for conversation. Glenn identified roles. Joel was talking mostly about geometry. Barry was talking about in a show of geometric figures animated. I brought up from last week some lingering thoughts regarding shame and transparency. And then now you're speaking of permaculture. So those are the topics that have come forth and laid on the table for conversation today.
Permaculture is part of geometry.
It is. It is. Yes.
I believe we should make connection, David.
We should. Yes. What's your name? Sorry.
My name's Joel Paris.
Brilliant. Dave Middlemiss. Good to meet you, man. Good to meet you.
I shall be coming back to Thailand towards the end of next year. I plan to spend a lot of time in temples, speaking with the monks. I've already spent time in Wat Batanta, which is east of Bangkok. Spent 8 days there last year.
Brilliant, brilliant.
About 2 hours away from Bangkok.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we're quite away from Bangkok. But,
I went to Phitsanulok and Sukhothai, and then Nan as well.
Oh wow, well, that's awesome. Well, you'd be welcome here anytime. We move around. We move from ecovillage to ecovillage. So we run our course at each space, teach as much as we can, give as much as we can, and then move on to the next space. Eventually, we'll have to go home.
There's going to be about a month in the time I'm there that I'm going to be traveling around. I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be, but I would very much appreciate linking up with you and going to some of those communities.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. We'll be back in Udon probably by then. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good to touch base. Could I add something to the
agenda
for discussion? Could I add something for discussion?
Sure.
I would like to set an intention. Like we've come to a conclusion as eco-villages and as a monastic tradition that we'd like to set a massive intention, and that's sort of like roughly Eckhart Tolle's ideal, but we call it free lithium. And what we do is anybody that joins the group, we ask them to create in their mind their own free lithium and name it. And that's their worldview. That's their sort of global intention. And then the rest of it is looking on how we collaborate with the rest of the world, bringing that into fruition. So we have an overall free lithium where everybody works together, and then we have our own infinite free lithium that we're gifted. It's based on sort of spirals, like galaxies, and it's where the overlaps happen that the beauty is. So we anybody that joins, we say, right, what's your free lithium named? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What's its characteristics? Because we have to have a carrot that dangles for everyone, and we have to have a group carrot that dangles. So free lithium as a whole is all of these worlds that we create together, coexisting or co-expanding, co-ascending. And we believe that if we're going to ascend individually, the planet begins to ascend, the solar system begins to ascend, the galaxy, the universe, the omniverse begins to ascend, and everything lifts with it. So that's our principal belief system. Weird things, we don't speak with the monks much now. We've went into silent retreat so we can connect. So now we tend not to speak. So I was hoping for some cereal the other day, and cornflakes turned up the morning after. So we sort of like, we're on a level of communication that is not verbal. It's crazy. And like things like in meditation, if I think something, one of the monks will come up after and laugh and say, "Oh, so you think such?" And I'm like, "Oh my God," because it's like personal something. And the head monk said, "Look," he said, "it's unconditional love." He said, "You could be Adolf Hitler sitting in meditation and we could read your mind, but we wouldn't think anything worse of you because you're in transition, you're in process." This is crazy. I've never experienced anything like this in my life before. There's a meditation master just down from me. Basically, he sits in the sun like 45 degrees sometimes. This is quite an unusual experience for me. We have healers on site. This site is massive. We've got a hospital. We've got a college with 150 students. We've got accommodation, like old people's accommodation. We've got our own water supplies. We've got a herd of white buffalo. It's huge. I need to send you guys some videos to show you the place. And then that's not even the temple. This is just the land across the road and about a kilometre away from, well, half a kilometre away from the temple. So that's just a heads up of where I am at the moment. So.
Well, so they can actually read minds while you're meditating. You experience that?
The echo of thought pulsates through all of existence. Every action is pulsating through all of existence. It goes down to the unified ones who can see through it all.
Yeah, I believe that, but it's something else to actually be able to pick it up, of course.
It's basically, they call it the noble silence. So for usually for the rains retreat, the full 3 months, they don't speak. So they first start to intuit what each other needs. So like if you're sitting at the table and somebody wanted salt, they intuit. Now the most effective at this are the forest monks or the isolated monks when they come back into the temples after their isolation. So the minds are pretty sharp. I meditate twice a day. My mind's not that sharp, but it's amazing. It's amazing. Some of the things I've seen and experienced firsthand are mind blowing. I can't really sort of explain that on any way, shape, or form, but it's a great space to be. Monks with their third eyes open, telling you things about life that telling me things about my life that I've never ever mentioned to anyone. And like pinpoint accurate every single detail, just like it's insane. But this is the tip of the iceberg. To be fair, this is if a community sets an intention and works towards that and uses the skills that they've been honing over, 2,500 years, these things are capable. These things are possible. But apart from that, if you motivate and mobilize that force for good across a country, and you link that to the royal family and the government, our ideal is Freegenesis. That's the name that we're coining it across the spaces. I think it's a noble cause. So Freegenesis leads to Freelisium as such.
So
but
may
really,
I ask a question,
it's all
David?
in the mind. You can indeed, yeah.
You mentioned that you don't speak much with the monks anymore. Did you used to speak with the monks and that stopped, or is it because they went into this silent retreat?
No. We don't need to speak. The communication sort of more on the sort of mental level. Things that I need turn up the next day. It's crazy. So like, I saw an old car that was dumped, and I was thinking that car needs to be fixed. That wouldn't take a great deal of repairing. And like the next day, it's dragged out and sort of there's a mechanic looking at it, and then the head monk just sort of smiles at me, sort of. You might as well be winking, and it just sort of happens. It's crazy. I can't really fully communicate back, but I can sort of read roughly now. Usually my waking time's about 2:30 a.m. now. I usually go to bed at 12. Tonight I went to bed at 7 to try and get up at 11 for you guys. And usually I'm up at 2:30. I start work at 2:30. I write a few letters. I've been writing to the princess, the crown princess here, write to the prime minister here. Also write to the head Ajahn in Bangkok. Quite frequently just sort of give a heads up of where we are, etc. But he'll probably know already. I usually go for meditation at 4 a.m. and chanting, and then I go out for arms around about 6 a.m. And at one point, I was only eating the arms that I was collecting once a day, but now I'm back to normal food again, and I just sort of go out and support the monks in the arms round. So it's quite a cool space. It's a nice life. It's a good life, and we're connecting with all the right people. and the government are looking at, we're linking with China and Russia, and looking at ecological bitcoins. Paul Stamets and Google have just released a fungus. It's a coin based on fungus that Paul Stamets has released. It's an ecological coin. China and Russia, 5 EU states, are looking to invest in independent ecological currency, stabilizing a price across the globe, so that whichever ecovillage or supporting nation you go to will have a set value, and it's going to be used to stimulate biodiversity. So people are divesting from oil and various different things in certain aspects, and investing in ecology and biodiversity.
So David, I'm curious. 2 questions. Number one, we often have certain individuals take an entire Saturday and present their interests, their beliefs, their plans, their feelings of whatever. So there's an option for you to take one of these Saturdays and present that, or we could actually just go into it today, since you seem to be pretty enthusiastic about representing what's going on there. And second question related to that is, have you yourself been in a relatively long period of silence?
Well, I go into silence when I food fast. So I did a week food and water fast midsummer this year.
It feels like a lot wants to come out, you know.
Sort of, but I mean, I don't want to sort of take the space. I don't want to sort of take the space. So I'll. If you guys want that, I'm happy to talk.
Would you like to take one of the upcoming Saturdays?
Yeah, it'd be good to talk about it more in depth. Yeah. I can tell you about the journey so far as well. The last place we stayed was 12 months at a shamanic retreat center with ayahuasca. So I've been in ceremony helping a shaman for the last 12 months. What we all have as a community, we moved there as a community. So it's been some cool things. It's very good.
Yeah, that would be a great topic for you one of the Saturdays, if you could just share more in depth your experiences. So I think it would
I would love that. If you guys are cool with that, I don't want to sort of take over anything, but it would be lovely to do that.
I would love to hear more about it.
Actually, curiously, one of my friends, for at least 2 or 3 years now, this may be the 4th, has actually gone for about 10 to 14 days somewhere in Thailand just to go to one of these very silent retreat meditation centers. He's actually from Oslo.
We have
contemplates dukkha and all the attendant associated ideas.
We've sort of condensed it to 2 things from the Buddha's teaching. The first thing he taught was emptiness, which is actually infinity, which makes our problems and issues tiny, so they sort of open into infinity, and we don't have them anymore. So when we're watching the breath, it opens us to this infinite state. That's it. And the second thing is metta, which is unconditional love. It's compassion, complete passion. So we don't focus like all of the suns in the universe through a magnifying glass at an ant and burn it to death, or a person in a relationship. We open that love up. So the description is like a silent lion's roar. Our blessings should be like a silent lion's roar. So once we reach that infinite state, we fill it with unconditional love until it overflows. It's the first horizon of infinity, and it fills into infinities of unconditional love. And after that, your life becomes much easier, because your conditioning starts to fall away. The more you meditate, the more you reach this state, the more your conditioning from your society, from your parents, your parental karma starts to fall away, or the programming that they've put into you, physical, actual programming that they've put into you from their pain and suffering starts to fall away. So you get to a state of flow. Basically, that's it. You get to a state of flow where you're pretty much happy all the time. A central point to your hurricane. You don't stand up and draw into the hurricane itself, and don't let anybody draw you in. That's it.
So David, it sounds like you would like to take this Saturday. Would you like to take this Saturday for presentation?
Sam, I would just talk constantly to anybody that would listen. I just love talking.
That's why I was
love
wondering whether or
communicating.
not you've been in some extended period of silence, and for some reason, you know, are full.
The thing is, after my periods of silence, I did a month. After my period of silence, you're meant to be sort of more silent and more sort of centered. I spoke more. I talk a lot. The monks were like, a month of silence, and afterwards you talk more. How does this work? I was like, I don't know. I'm sorry. I will go with your.
If you achieved emptiness.
Sorry, say again.
Would that actually happen if you
Unity.
achieved emptiness?
Well, I can achieve emptiness, but holding it's a completely different thing.
When you achieve emptiness, you obtain unity. Seeing through it all, every single last bit of it, every operation, every workings, every nature, you understand all things.
It's true. Well, I mean, go on. I'll take this Saturday. So we'll start at a point. I realised that at some point in human nature, a schism came about, a parasitic ideal of separation of self. And
the light and the dark.
Yes. The actual ideal of duality doesn't exist.
We're one and unified.
Absolutely. And it's vast. It's limitless. Everything else is a part of this parasitic ideal, which does not exist. The monetary systems, all of the systems on Earth, the schismatic sort of stress towards the masculine, rather than the divine feminine and masculine matched together. We have the paternal and maternal. The paternal is patent. It's the universe beyond. It's the father. The maternal is the material. It's the mother, the earth. Now, the earth spirals inwards into infinity, and the father spirals outwards into infinity. So we have the mind or the body. The mind is paternal, it's maternal. Now, if we live in the mind, we become accountants, rip little old ladies off and create monetary systems and try and dominate nature and factorize it, and turn everything into a factorized item on the planet. So it's just factorization of everything. So industrialization is factorization because people are focusing on the paternal, on the masculine, non-divine masculine. Now, if we focus on the non-divine feminine, we become drug addicts or sensory pleasure addicts. The heart, when it is opened fully, when we actually attain that emptiness and fill it with unconditional love, is the governance of the two factors of creation. And the third is the heart. It doesn't exist, it's emptiness. It's love. It's what holds galaxies together and stops them from falling apart. It's the order that everything, it's the father and mother nurturing everything across all time and space, before and after all time and space. The Tao is love. It's that balance of material, patterns, and love. That's it. That's everything. Now, if we're centered in that,
into your perspective.
Absolutely. At any point, anybody
you
just
described
throw in what
the
they need.
function of light. The function of dark is the inverse. The masculine and feminine are swapped around, but most pay attention to only the light, and so they do not see the dark. When you realize that both of these functions are together, you can see their interactions and the combined variance in masculine and feminine.
I find that when we actually find that state of flow, that central point, the dark and light vanish. There is just flow. There is no heart, there is no dark, there is no light, there is just everything. Everything is everything, and nothing is nothing. Everything is nothing, and nothing is everything. It's all the same. Yeah. So it allows a letting go that allows an experience of all and everything simultaneously. It's unconditional love. I cannot put it into words. It's too vast to put into words, but it's very simple as an operation to attain. It's not that difficult. Now, we came to a conclusion that this schismatic issue across the entire globe, this imbalance, can be easily rectified. So we have a parasitic thought process within us that keeps us in the dark or the light, or both, and then we're in real trouble without heart. So as a beekeeper now, I realized we had parasites on the bees. We have tiny bees that are stunted because of the parasites with no wings. They become lover bees. And what they do in the nest is they love all the other bees and give unconditional love. And they fly in different ways. They fly by giving love. And the other bees look after them, unless they're army bees and very, masculine, and then they get a peck and told that they don't want the love. And when these parasites strike, the beekeeper takes powdered sugar, so icing sugar, and he sprinkles it over the nest, over the entire colony, so that they become sticky and can't fly. So they have to clean each other, and then they start to see the parasites across the board and clean off the parasites and remove them and drop them out of the nest. So I realized that our worldview is like sprinkling sugar across the nest. So if we have an intention of Elysium or free Elysium, and we have our own carrot as a fulfillment that comes from this, we start to clear each other's trauma. We start to pick the parasites out of our own minds. We see them fully. We look within. And that's where the journey begins. Yes, that's where my journey began. I think I started meditating when I was about 5 years old. I used to sit on the washing as my mum was washing up, washing the clothes. And it was an old hot point washing machine that used to hum with an om sound. And I used to sit on the clothes cross-legged, making an om sound at the same pitch as the washing machine as it pumped out. And my mum used to say, "What are you doing?" I said, I don't know, I just like doing it. She said, "Oh, you're crazy. I realized I was sort of meditating. And I think that's when it first started. When I was 12 years old, I started traveling down to Durham, which was about half's ride on the bus to go to Buddhist meditation. And it was a new Kadampa tradition space at the time. And since then I've gone through, but as an international community member and sort of a leader, I don't attach to any spirituality or any religion in any way, shape or form, because I have to support them all. So this year I fasted for Ramadan with a friend to support them. I've observed Jewish holidays, I've observed Christian holidays, spiritual systems. We've run most of the retreats, and then we've gone into a shamanic retreat center and ran shamanic retreats, and that was awesome. That was great. So I was a shaman in training with Kunut Nuji in Doisaket, and a member of Life Chan Yuan, which is a Chinese community, and that's where I met Ajahn Sutep, who is a Buddhist meditation master. He's got some stuff on YouTube, very simple techniques for meditation. And that's brought us to the monastery here, to the temple here.
Could you say his name again and maybe
Ajahn Sutep Chinawaro. I can show you his name written, so you can write it down. I'm not sure exactly how to have a look here. So this is his chart, a simple chart for Buddhist enlightenment. So it shows the Buddhist teachings in brief, and that is his name there.
Okay, Ajahn Sutep.
Ajahn Sutep.
And you can find him on Facebook.
I will.
And on YouTube. So he's in his 70s and looks about 50, and he plants about 50 trees a day at his site, just slowly regenerating it. We've touched base with a monk that takes 1,000 villagers from one village to the next and digs swales, and has permaculture sort of aid groups, and then the next month 1,000 of them go to another village, and they're all from different villages, and he creates this sort of catalyzing effect throughout the whole of the north here, on the hillsides. We've met some amazing people through all of this, and my mentor, is the founder of Global Eco Village Network Oceania in Asia. So we've touched base with a lot of the guys there. That's our sort of main umbrella group, I guess. And there's 10,000 eco villages in that. We have another 30,000 eco villages with separate organisations that we've joined, but that's the biggest sort of single organisation that we're part of. And there's 110,000 eco villages in total, 250,000 healing centres. And I think there was 2.5 billion Indigenous people that we talk to and connect with. And then there's yoga studios, etc. So an estimation in March this year was 4.5 billion people awake across the planet. Just before coronavirus came about, there was 500,000 celebrations across the planet, from a cup of tea and some meditation to full-scale celebrations of sovereignty. And that was just before the coronavirus hit. And at the same time, that was when President Trump said that he'd decided to tear away from the monetary system, and America was going to trade separately. So the coronavirus, which means crown, which alludes to, possibly if you look at it one way, alludes to sovereignty. At the time when President Trump was about to declare his country sovereign, and 500,000 people across the world, 500,000 celebrations across the world were going to declare sovereignty, a virus came about. And every time that there's a portal or an important point in this, the lockdown becomes more intense. Like the 21st of December, it locked down in England just before that and went into a higher tier of lockdown. The lockdown started again in Thailand. And it's weird that it coincides with all of these celebrations of sovereignty across the world. But these coincidences do happen. It's one of those things, you know. So currently, 4.5 billion meditators have been isolated, and it usually gives them lots more time to meditate. It's good. It's a good thing for meditators. So we've kept in touch with everybody. Our celebration went ahead. We still had 500,000 celebrations, but they were independent or separate celebrations. We still talk and amass our ideas and thoughts and feelings. We still share everything that we do, especially all of our knowledge, completely freely, so that everybody has access to it. We touch base with a guy called Manish Jain, who's created a university where you choose your subject and you choose your rigorous technique to test yourself at the end of it and decide whether you've passed or not your course. And there's one young man that's decided to learn about street kids in Delhi and started from his study. He's then started a mission to help give them a purpose. And he's using permaculture to take them off the streets and off the rubbish tips, taking patches of land and helping them turn these patches of land into food forests. We've got people that helped the gang members in the Bronx start food forests. So they've gone from dealing drugs to dealing organic vegetables and fertilizer recipes. And they're now saying places in the Bronx are very safe and abundant, and the most dangerous places to go are the financial capitals, where bankers are killing each other, and there are great issues and problems. And lots of the bankers are now dropping out of the banking system, peeling away from Wall Street, and looking for independent ecological currencies to invest in. Because if you think there's an unstable market on fossil fuels, etc., and you invest in an eco-currency in an eco-village, and it's balanced with other eco-villages across the world, and all of the other eco-villages fail, that currency is an internal independent currency. It's interdependent in our support networks, so everything supports everything else. But as a currency, it stands alone. It's used internally. It can be used externally, but if you have everything you need, and the only things you need to buy in are things like solar panels, until your nation has free generated enough to create its own solar panels, the monocrops have gone, because they use monocrops to isolate communities. So here we grow yam, corn, and sugar. Now you can't eat those, but all the forests and food forests and medicine plants are cut down or burned. And the palm oil issue, and they will set your sort of 5 staples that you sell to the rest of the world. So that guarantees you haven't got what you need. Rice is usually not one of them in a place that eats rice. So they isolate what you need and take it to another country. So it has to travel halfway around the world for you to get what you need to survive and thrive. Then they limit it to a point where you can't thrive. So when you enter into the pyramid scheme of the global economy, you guarantee that your indigenous plants will be destroyed, and it's a form of ecocide. It's also a form of genocide, because when you start to remove all of the indigenous plants that connect you to your nature, and then you take those indigenous people that have worked as communities together, bonded, it's basically the same as the white supremacists globalizational scheme has taken over the rest of the world and wiped out indigenous populations, from Hawaii to Australia to America, across the globe. So our wonderful explorers were actually pirates, basically looking for, sussing out where they could take next, and what they could take next, and how they could do it. And instead of pox-ridden blankets, now we've got Coca-Cola branding. So they brand the people and change them from, indigenous and living completely hand in hand with everything around them, to Louis Vuitton and whatever else, create mass panic, monetary shortages, change the monetary system. And I saw England fall. I saw it turn into a selfish rabble of insanity, and all of the beautiful communities destroyed. The mining communities destroyed that I'm from. My mum's family are all miners, smuggling eggs and.
David?
Sorry.
There's so much information you're providing here. I'm having trouble following it. Is there a crisp message you would really like to deliver, or are you just giving us a lay of the land, or are you pointing to the malaise of the world, or are you talking about your own plans? I mean, you seem like really, really full of a flow of information, and I'm trying to figure out how can we help you do this, or how can we best digest it for ourselves, because there's such a flow and it's bouncing here to there, all over the place. And so what I'm trying to figure out is, could you take a deep breath and figure out concisely what it is you would like us to really understand? If we understand nothing else, what would you really like us to get?
May I pose another function to this? Maybe you don't need to know right in this instant. Maybe being provided the knowledge will give you much time.
I'm not being provided the
future.
knowledge because it's coming fire hose fashion. So I would
You're
even have to
hearing
come
it.
back here and review the video in slow motion and take very careful notes to really understand. Now, I understand that David is in flow, but that doesn't mean that everyone else, particularly me, I'm not in flow right now because there's just too much to digest. And he's using words that are with different definitions that I'm familiar with, like everything is nothing and nothing is everything. And yes, I can understand all that, but how does that actually allow me to change my life so that it can actually benefit from what David is giving me?
How are you applying emotion and ego, which distorts the truth of reality?
I have to, because I'm trying to figure out how to best get value out of this. And I'm also checking in with everyone else. If everybody else is getting it, then I'll stand back.
I can't see the forest for the trees.
That's fine. That's fine.
Anyway, I
Like I
like
said-
the question of what's the one thing you would really like us to understand. I think that's a good question.
The entire world seems to be scattered and separate. And I've realized absolutely without a doubt that over half of the populace sees it completely differently. And this is not being talked about. And over half of the populace sees a brand new Earth, and it's already formed, it's already functioning, and we are living it. And something or someone is keeping the rest of the world in the dark about this and holding it all in stasis and hoping that it goes away.
Did you say that 4.5 billion people were awake?
Yes.
That's quite a statement.
We've estimated the yoga studios. We've estimated the meditation spaces. We've estimated the religious organizations that are now coming to this conclusion also.
This sounds like the Western perspective of awakened. The Western perspective of awakened believes that just having knowledge is what awakening is. True spiritual awakening is seeing the ultimate as one. Until you attain that position, you are not truly awake. You are still living in Maya. There may be that many people on the path, but not everyone on the path is yet awake. And it is time we attained that position.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff. I would love to hear more about this.
Some of the terminology is tied to traditional belief systems and spiritual belief systems, like those fancy words some of us use that are from different languages. But the 1% is like the top of the pyramid. The 4 billion or 5 billion is the bottom of the pyramid, called the BOP market, BOP, bottom of the pyramid. And that's where awakened people mostly congregate. I think most of the awakened people are common people, generally poor people in the world. If you find awakened people up in the top 1%, they're generally people who are well educated, wealthy, and making more money. There are some of them who are not awakened in the dark side and some that are. So if we can find a way to locate and bring in the ones that are, we create more trees. Each one of us becomes a tree, and this way, as our group grows, we become a forest, perhaps metaphorically speaking.
From creation there is destruction, and from creation there must come destruction. Balance must be obtained.
Well, I have felt that David really wanted to get a message out. So I'm really trying to say, we've given David this particular Saturday. And so, David, I think Glenn was right. I was with Glenn when he said, that's the message that I can actually get concisely from you. But you just said about the world's malaise. The rest of this, whether or not 4.5 billion people are already enlightened or awakened, that I actually am hopeful for. I actually don't see much evidence of it yet, but that could be just my own sources. And then, where can we go from that particular meme? I get that. Where would you like to go for us next?
I think personally, we need to choose a project, and we need to look at collaborating on a project that can start a catalyzing change that can spread, like a fungal network. We have Zoom meetings. We have the knowledge and support. We're all intelligent people, and many of us are probably living in our minds or in our bodies. And if we're aware of that, and we can use simple techniques to open our hearts to get to that stage, and we all find that state of flow, and we work like an operating eco-village, which the main function is having that carrot, having the personal carrot and having the global carrot. Borders dissolve. In that vastness, borders dissolve within. And then that moves.
Can I be the village idiot here?
Yes.
Why do I want a carrot? Why do I want
Why
a
so?
carrot?
Say
You
again?
need something
would
to
I
pull
want
you
a
in a
carrot?
direction.
Right? Carrot seems like it's a reward of some kind.
Something to focus on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a focal point. You see, when we get into arguments and discussions, it draws us back to what's important, back to the center of our hurricane. We move out of the for want of a better word, pissing contest of life, and go back into the center, out of the actual hurricane itself raging, and back to the eye of the storm, back to the space of enlightenment, of God, of humility. So we need something to snap us out of it. So if a couple argues, there needs to be something that snaps them out of the argument, otherwise they'll do it for weeks or months on end. It's the focal point that actually keeps you moving towards something, which is a horizon.
Okay, so I like
infinity.
That. Focus, I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Carrot, I was having trouble relating to from that particular.
Well, it's the ideal of a donkey following a carrot to.
I know that's exactly what came, and that's why I said, that's to me could be an old, it could be non-useful, it could be even in fact a detrimental model. So that's why I prefer the focus that you elaborated on rather than the carrot model. But you also said we.
So a focal point, and we've classed it as New Earth, Freelisium, Elysium, and what we do, the first thing we do is name it. It's really enlightenment. It's internal enlightenment, but we name it, and then we start to coalesce to work towards it. But we keep it, again, non-attachment. It's totally flowful and fluid. So how many of us are on line now at this moment in this meeting? I kind of check. I'm just on a small smartphone at the moment.
10.
9 or 10.
10. Brilliant. Could I ask you? Just, I mean, you can change this at any time. I would like you to give your pure world that you can create a name each, just at your own pace, and tell me a little bit about it. Like, I mean, the simplicity of it is, one person said, I like flowers, so I would like mine to be filled with flowers. Another person said, I love growing melons, so mine would be filled with melons. Then they start to elaborate on the social structures, how many suns in the sky, stuff like that. But just keep it simple and just give it a name here and now, the focal point.
I'll go. I just want to do good and then do better if I know how to do better.
I want to attract investors for a eco-village hemp farm powered by the sun, solar panels. That's attracting interest from investors. So how many of us have the opportunity to invest in a hemp farm, eco-village, where we train young people from the city to learn about spiritual ideas?
I would like you all to think big. It's your world, right? It's infinite, but it starts with a planet, imagine, right? So it's not just a hemp farm, it's an entire planet. It could be an entire planet of eco villages. It can be light cities. It can be anything you want, aim big, right? we really truly have the universe, our own. You have to,
Yeah.
Be recognized, for functionality to be understood, for the entire species to recognize the flows of the Dharma and to understand their ultimate nature, to be guided and shown the path forward rather than the path around in circles in duality and Maya.
This is it, the spirals. We have a phenomena in community where we go in a spiral and have this huge falling out where everybody either leaves the community or spirals back round for the next one, and it gets less and less each time. It's storming and norming. And we form as a pseudo community to start with, and then the nuances start to come out within the spiral. The worldview, your Elysium or your eco-village dream, is the thing that holds it together, that focal point that brings you back together. And what usually happens is it's something like somebody drops a scarf on the floor and somebody else, that's the last time I've had enough. And then they blow into this egotistical tirade, and the two people argue, and then people side with either one and the other one's outcast. But it gets brought back together, or people split. They all tear apart. They cannot do this. This is too much, because true life comes out and people start to heal each other's trauma. And that's the point when the entire eco-village either falls apart or stays together. So the focal point at the beginning of it, what the eco-village is going to be and what it's going to be about, is the most important thing. Now, you guys will have done this a million times, and each time it gets less and less as you trust and learn from each other, and you know each other's background, you see why it's happened. And this storming and norming becomes less and less as the spiral expands. And as our spirals, our eco-villages overlap, like ripples on a pond as pebbles are dropped in. Well, Alex, sorry.
We spiral up towards the light, we're getting further away from the issues that cause problems, which is down in the darkness. I mean, the Wall Street bankers, they're attracted by a carrot.
The light can also pose problems, as it prevents people from having the interactions required for creating strength. They wish to create too much nicety, and that too much nicety causes weakness, whereas the darkness wants to create a harsh environment, whereas too much harshness destroys and removes potential. It's only combined that they create the positives of each other.
So the infinite inward rooting to the material allows us to stretch higher into the paternal. But there is no differentiation. It's just growth, basically. Very simply, you root and ground and stretch and grow. And that is the spiral, inverted. And it's a double torus. It's the torus bringing energy in, the bottom from the top, in the top from the bottom, and spiraling inside. The spiral has an indraw and gives energy out. And then there are two plumes of energy flowing through the torus down the middle from the father, from the grounding flowing upwards, which create galaxies freely. The energy is free. Now, Einstein was slightly off a little. We can create prana and energy. The 0 point field is accessible through the heart opening, through unconditional love, through the balance of the maternal and paternal, and prana can be created in that heart space, in the center of that torus. It has an...
Can I ask you a question then?
You can.
I'm still trying to learn. What is unconditional love?
It's
energy.
It's Bob.
It's what?
Bob.
Bob?
Bob Almighty. Yeah. Imagine that everything and everyone in the world is called Bob. Every molecule is called Bob. That is Bob. That is Bob. And that have an equal value of Bob. I don't like that Bob more than that Bob because it's Bob. But I like writing. So this is a pen. I've given it value. This, at this moment in time, I want to write, has more value than Bob or the Buddhist shield.
I could be wrong, but I have conditional love instead of unconditional love. I place conditions on it, but that gives me a value that's different from the coin and the pen, so that I can establish which one is of more value than the other. Otherwise, unconditional love is not giving you that ability to distinguish what's of more value than the other.
Yes, yes. It's non-judgment. So that is Bob, and the rest is the state within you. So you're either in a form of duality, light or dark. You're either in flow, or you're at the side of the stream that is stagnant and dead, or you're at the side of the stream that is too fast. So
how is that different from acceptance?
it is not. It's all Bob. Sam, the answer to everything is Bob. Or if you want to go to the feminine side, Brenda. So if you think of God, the universe, and everything as Brenda or Bob, Brendaverse, you think of it all as one singularity, neither male nor female, black or white, rich or poor. You find unity consciousness. It's just not the magnifying glass magnifying the light on the ant so that it burns it. It's letting go. That's non-attachment. You do not attach by just opening up. It's the silent lines rule. You imagine that you experience unconditional, you experience love, compassion in your heart, metta. Okay? Imagine your in-breath and your out-breath at exactly the same time, just going on forever. Imagine the dual torus, the spiral pulling in energy, giving out energy simultaneously. Flowing energy up and round and under, like a donut. Flowing energy from under, up and round, with the energy of the universe flowing through the center, from the top down over, and from the bottom up over simultaneously.
Okay.
The flower of life, the
So if it
lotus,
is everything,
blossoming from the base and the top.
I'm just trying to be the village idiot still here.
Yes.
So I get the.
Do you want to be? You can look at my screen.
What does that mean?
That is what he's talking about.
Yeah, I see the choruses that David is drawing. I see the cones that David.
Top part, feminine. There's the masculine. There's
Why does it have to be one or the other?
Because that is the flow of function.
It's not. It's all.
Yeah,
we have to use. We have to use terminology that pertains to our dual lobes.
Right. I'm trying to understand your terminology. And so what I'm trying to map
until we move beyond it, you have to experience it, Sam. You need to come on a 3-month silent retreat. I've done a 3-month silent retreat. Yes.
So is it? Is what we're speaking?
Come on a retreat, Sam. Come on a retreat. I'll take you to an ayahuasca retreat, then we'll go into a silent retreat. I guarantee that things will change.
But it is the experience of the oneness of everything, basically.
May take you up on that. I've been trying to look into where to do ayahuasca safely.
Thailand, Kunut, in a Buddhist monastery, with monks that have already done it.
I did it at home. I did it at home, safely, at home, having bought from the internet.
Good man, Glenn, good man.
I don't think I could do. It was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced. Yeah. But I don't think I can buy it now, but I did a couple of years ago.
No, see, David, as I'm trying to understand you, I'm trying to understand what I think I understand and try to see some connection to what you're describing. Okay, so that's why I can't do it in rapid fire motion if so much comes at me at one time.
Well,
But if I'm slowing everybody
put-
else down, then I apologize. Okay?
I can help you, Sam. It comes when you're ready. It's the vastest thing that's ever happened. And then it shrinks to a tiny grain of sand of light in the
So let
palm
me
of your
ask you,
hand.
When it happens, are you happy?
What?
When it happens,
Yes.
are you happy? Okay, so
It's
if
happened.
I'm happy now,
It happens. It happens all the time. I'm always happy.
okay, good.
I mean, I have days, whereas before I would have months, and then I remember again, and it sort of. Sorry, I've got plugged in. It sort of works so that you have samsara for most of the time when you're younger, and then you get flashes of the light coming through, and then as you progress, you don't progress, you're back in the same place, you're always in the same place. It gets opposed so that you've got more light than darkness, or more emptiness filled with unconditional love than darkness, till it gets to a stage where, and I wouldn't say I'm enlightened in any way, shape, or form, but I've drawn to me where I am. I've drawn to me how I've gotten here through the quantum field. It literally just opens when you open your heart to it. The mind and the body become one. The omniverses of omniverses become one. And you just get to a flow state, not all the time. You remember your dad passed away when you were 8 years old and get a bit maudlin, but it might last, 10 minutes rather than a week. You might, get angry or triggered by something, but you realize that's something you need to internalize and look at because it's your problem. Because if you're getting triggered by something, like what he's done, the world's a terrible place. It's you. It's a mirror. The quantum field gives you exactly what you need to learn. You started this before you came here, before time and space. As the great all and everything, you said, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to learn. So you give yourself exactly what you need to move through it to omniversal ascension.
So by the way, Josh's hand is up and Alex's hand is up.
Sorry, guys. I cannot see. I've only got 4 of you on the little tiny phone screen.
Josh, you want to go? Then Alex?
If it's okay with David, I didn't want to interrupt this flow, but.
Hello, Josh.
Hello, David. Good to see you.
You too. Well, I can't see you.
Okay. I think you can swipe to the right on your phone if you need to see the other people in the room. But I just wanted to say, hey, good to see you. There was a point that you just mentioned that was so poignant and salient. I had to raise my hand. That was so beautiful. What you said is when you're in that balanced state of awakening your consciousness and you realize that you're pointing a finger and you're yelling at different people, but you stop doing that. I was going back to about 20 minutes in the conversation when you were yelling at all the people that are controlling the universe and they're taking over these corporations and the and I just really feel like it's possible that that's also something that's inside of us and we're projecting it back on those people. So I just want to be clear when we're...
the light's perspective of the darkness.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joel. Joel will explain it much better than I can, but thank you.
When the light looks at the darkness, it sees itself. It sees its own negatives rather than the darknesses. The light cannot see the positives of the darkness, and the darkness nor the light. Both the light and the dark believe themselves to be the light. They are the ones creating separation with emotion and attachment. Sam, you asked why there needs to be the masculine and the feminine. This is why. When you take a point of space and draw it through the rest of existence, that point creates circular vortices. Those circular vortices combine and create a torus. The masculine is the point, and the feminine is the torus. Does that help?
No, it doesn't.
It helps
because
me.
I can use everyone's model. I can use David's model and understand the universe. I can use your
Think
model and understand
purely
the
in
universe.
geometry.
I can use my model and understand the universe, and I can look at how they're all consonant and how they're all unified and how they're all, let's say, transformable from one to another.
Sam,
Yes?
we cannot look at it from an analytical. We can, but the analytical perspective is one aspect of it.
It is one.
So,
Yes.
so if we're aware that there are other aspects, the heart is the key. So we have to make a choice. We have to choose to examine unconditional love and infinity to open that. Or there are other ways. There are a million
And
other
I'm
ways.
trying, right? That's why I'm trying to understand what unconditional love is, right?
Would you like it to be effortless?
It is effortless. Because
Right.
when you say that it is acceptance, and I'm accepting what's around me, then that is the acceptance that I'm experiencing.
You're thinking about it.
No, I'm just accepting it. I'm not thinking about it until I came here.
Okay, that's good.
Right.
That's good. Well, you're there. You're there.
Can I say something about this balance?
Yeah,
and
Alex had his hand up also.
this darkness and light. One end of the spectrum, darkness; at the other end of the spectrum, light. Balance being in between, and happiness and sadness being extremes of the balance also. So if you've never experienced sadness, how would you know when you are happy? This balance comes from knowledge of experiencing these things and having them in balance in our lives. So happiness and sadness can come from meditation and being involved in the community, doing stuff. If you meditate too much, you meditate bugger it. Why should I do anything? People want you to build an organisation to relieve harm in the world and save the environment, but you've meditated too much and you're not interested in getting involved in doing anything with anyone.
Yeah.
Because you don't see the point. The thing is, if you have balance, if you have this distinction between what you're learning and what you're not learning, then you'll understand that all of us are always learning,
Okay.
all the time.
Let me ask another question. Okay. If all 8 billion of us do meditate and accept and love and align, okay, I get how that alters the course of the planet. Okay. If 4 billion of us are doing that, and the other 4 billion are out putting children in cages and raping and pillaging and extracting value out of society and others, then to me, there's still harm that's coming to many people. So I could say, okay, I'm here with the 4 million people meditating, and I'll just wait until everybody else is meditating. And in the meantime, another 3 billion people will suffer and die. Or I could actually say, I'm going to try and figure out, how I can actually do something today, whether it's, elected different congressmen or actually go down to the cage itself and, let them out, or is that the smartest thing? Because I might get shot, so I have to look at what is the most effective thing I can do, or I can just meditate.
Or you can do all of the above.
A question. What?
You can do all of the above.
Yes, exactly. So what if one is doing that, then is that unconditional love?
That is duality.
No, David said do all of it.
Yes.
Right?
You're saying the dualistic perception. David
I'm not.
Do all of it. You are.
No, your ego says that I'm being dualistic.
No, please let me explain.
Joel, you're so full of teaching. You're not listening to what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
Let him explain, please. Let him explain. He said it so softly, he didn't get to say it. Let him explain.
The light, being pure meditation, is the light. The dark, being the bankers, being ego, being the takers, is the darkness. Recognizing the required functionality of both is unity in duality. Your demonization is what is creating the duality. Your lack of acceptance as to the functional natures of existence is what is creating the duality. This is what the light and the dark do. demonize each other rather than recognizing each other's qualities?
You see, I find that neither exist, and that once we recognize that within, they start to fall away in our landscapes around us. The media will bring wisps of that back to us, but in my world, that's a world a million miles away from here. But it still exists, and everything I do is for to end that, although it has ended for me.
So is that a duality, David?
The thing is, the darkness that you hold is the catalyst to a better place. It's condensed light. It's a cushion that holds you to stop you ripping the universe apart. It's tar. You see, if you allow that to spread out across the universe, that light that you're holding, eventually you will see at the center of it there's light, and at the outer edges of it there's light, and you'll start to look into it and accept the darkness. You'll start to love it. An analogy would be, you have a demon child within you that you hate and push to one side into the darkness, where he screams and scratches and runs around your rib cage, in your head, ripping things apart. And then suddenly you notice him and you become a mother and a father and hold him tight. And he's screaming and biting and there's blood and your fingers are getting bitten, and you keep on holding him and loving him and loving him and loving him and loving him until he stops kicking, and then he becomes this beautiful child. And then it starts to subside around you. That condensed darkness, that condensed light, spreads out to the vastest light you've ever seen. Once you start to look within, and once you start to shine a light onto that, once you start to purge the idea of a demon, of a monster, of darkness. Once you start to do the inner work.
Is that a duality?
There isn't such a thing.
Light sees in duality, even though it claims to see in unity.
There's no such thing as duality.
So that would be the transcendence of duality.
Which is what I was trying to say.
It's all illusory. It's all illusory. Male, female, separation, rich, poor, dark, light. It's all illusory. Everything is infinities of unconditional love, and you access it by once you have that set in all of your timelines, in all of your energetic fields. It starts to bring them all together at one point and spread them all out across all of infinity.
So I have another question. Can I ask? Or Alex, you had your hand up.
Yeah, because this illusion that I'm experiencing seems very real at the moment. And Joel held up an image of a torus, and then also held up an image of a speck in the center, a central point emanating out left and right. Now, in energetic quantum mechanics, we know there's an up and down spin on energy. So the torus is represented by the magnetic poles of energy, the up and down spin, and we can have it as torus as one point of energy. So in that situation, you've got a center point inside the torus that's vacant, a void. That's where eternity exists. And on the surface of the torus, it goes right around the tube, and the tube meets in a 360 circle. That could be where we experience existence and reality. And the illusion is not there. The illusion is something we create in our own mind.
Hello, Tara. Oh, not connected yet.
But it's interesting, the point that we make about how we experience life by taking note of the extremes as the pendulum swings. We've got happiness, sadness, dark, light, evil, love, etc., etc. Ugly people, attractive people, poor people, rich people, spiritual people, and spiritually dead people, spiritually vacant people, I guess you could call them. There's something missing there. Over.
David, either you can respond to that, or Colin also had his hand up, and I also had my hand up.
I'll let you guys go first, and we'll
Colin, you're on.
Interject shortly.
Okay. See if I can use a little more tact in the new year. That's all hope. I find that I would like to build on the things I can align with, and point out where I might have difficulties aligning with something and why. And I hear Sam asking the same question. So in a way to what I want to ask, and I'll try again and rephrase. If I feel I have my own awakening, my own understanding, which I think we all do if we're on the pursuit of better or good, for better or worse. If we're greedy, selfish, Machiavellian, then we probably are in the other 4 billion that Sam's waiting to come around and catch on to this idea of the existence is bigger than the individual, as well as the individual. And so I tend to think about the possibilities of the greater things. And I can't say whether those things are real or not. And I can say they might have a positive force in thinking about it, like a story. I think a lot of good stories out there can allow us to think. I think philosophy, in a way, is a type of story. And I think we're deep into the philosophy today, I think. The question is, if my philosophy is different than your philosophy, can we still build an eco-village together and respect each other? And where do the differences of the no-go? This is typical type of question I have in alignment. When does that alignment break? And I think the devil is in the details always with this stuff. And like sometimes you might have a conflict between, I don't even think the philosophy, when you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with the pests in your crop, right? Or the sprinkling, trying to find the sugar. So if we're arguing about who has the right to sprinkle the sugar will never get sprinkled. That's my question. So how can we realize that people have different worldviews and potentially somewhat different ideas of what better is, and live in coexistence, not trying to say you must see it my way? That's my question.
Simple answer, acceptance. Just that one word, acceptance, is a simple answer for listening to other people's views.
So Tyra, David has the floor today, and David is talking about his experiences in Thailand and with the meditation and the eco-villages and the world that he wants to create. So we've got, I guess I and Colin and others have had questions for him. So David, would you like to respond to Colin's question or any of the others that you've heard here?
Yes. Alex, the toric field, if you focus on it, you've lost the center. It is, that's all it needs to be. It functions, that's all it needs to do. And the ease that comes from that is your flow. So to focus in, you've drawn yourself to a tiny point. Focus back out. You're the observer of the observer, if that makes sense. You see, the I that I am is observing. Until it interacts, it has no energetic sort of negative or positive. It just is. It's isness, justice, just isness. Sorry, Sam, go.
No, I didn't.
It's the idea of live and let live, I guess, is what I was getting into, because I find that challenging the nuances of unitary geometry, or the oneness of consciousness and everywhere, is like Deepak, or some religious apologists talking about afterlife in different ways. There's enough of these versions of worldviews to go around with good intentions behind them, and I feel that if people's egos of being right, or even they could even be right, but not even too abstract to make a difference, right? Just way outside the realm of I need water, right?
Can I ask,
if we were going to pick a project, I'm saying, with the fact that I'm an atheist and have nothing to do with this allness, oneness stuff that you can't show me, maybe it's out there, I'm not saying it isn't. And I can feel the goodness in your concern and your compassion and that I will focus on. But your words of feminine, masculine, and all that, well, I don't really need it. I probably have it my own way, my own understanding of it. But you get what I'm saying? If I don't buy your sermon, how can I still be your ally and actually not even an ally, but a supporter,
Neighbor.
Do you like food?
What's that?
Do you like food?
Food is awesome.
You like coffee, tea?
Well, that's just it. That's right down to the bare necessities of human.
All of it requires the feminine and the masculine.
Can you sing or play an instrument?
Yeah, but the deal is.
Brilliant. Wait a minute. I'm going somewhere.
Somebody who doesn't buy into the philosophy. I'm not saying I do or don't. I'm just
Would
saying.
you like a coffee and some food? And shall we sing and maybe?
If I was an atheist, would I be relegated in the group to be the one to clean the latrines? That's what it comes down to.
Depends how good a cup of coffee you make, to be fair, and how good you cook, and if you wash up afterwards.
Should not depend.
I will go and clean the latrines and wash your feet and wipe your ass. I will do all those dirty things that you consider to be abhorrent because they are just actions, and even the highest should be able to humble themselves and do them.
Okay, well, here's a simple question then. So say if I say we should have indoor plumbing, and you say, no, that's too much the way of the world. How about I'm not saying that this is a practical example, but just saying for a conflict. So therefore, since there's no indoor plumbing, somebody has to clean the latrine. Well, I'm not going to do it because I've got a better way to move feces down the road somewhere to be. You say, well, we'll need to build cement. Well, we're not allowed to have cement. So when does the worldly plastic coffee cups stop us from being able to place an order for a bill of goods? Or is it just everything is the way it is, and we accept it as it comes, and gradually, eventually, people will turn around? I hope my question isn't too vague.
Change the Pythagorean relationships. Can you do that? No. That is the relationships you need to pay attention to. To answer your previous question...
Until he understands what you're saying, Joel.
That's probably true.
I can't.
But to answer his first question...
So if you
do you not know the relationships of Pythagoras?
I don't understand, then we're not communicating, right?
Do you understand the relationships of Pythagoras?
I can play a song and
I actually have a math degree, Joel, so yes, I know the Pythagorean theorem.
Can you change those relationships?
Alex, I'm with you. Alex.
What is the point of that statement?
Well, those relationships are part of the geometry of existence.
If you accept
the relationships you can't change.
Geometry, then yes, that's true.
Yes, but the geometry of existence is what it is.
But how does that allow me to live my life or Colin to live his life differently today?
The thing is, everything's negotiable. Everything's based on love. We if we can have 40 or 50 people in a community, we work things through.
Right. Joshua has his hand up, and then I'd like to ask.
Colin, 2 seconds. Josh, sorry. Colin, in answering your question, I would say that the fundamentals are the most important things. The shit that we hold on to, the backpack full of crap that we carry around with us, is light that we can embody. So we have to actually look within to illuminate. That's basically it. So if all of these things that you're asking me, you need an answer to, I would suggest look within. On the other hand, they're not issues. There are solutions that are about to be formed. Yeah, we can look at it as we have a simple theory. It's called solution-based thinking. So if you ask a question, you've got to be the first to give the solution, a solution. It's a bit like if you have someone, when you're doing a job, looking at the job, go, "Ah, that's not right. Oh, you shouldn't have, you left that on it. There's the hammer. You can finish it. See you later." So basically, if you use that principle, it helps people take responsibility for their own issues, problems, or happiness. And if you're happy how you are, that's fine. And if it doesn't make any great dent on the community, that's fine also. But if it does, then we talk about it, work it through. Sorry, Josh, Sam, carry on.
No,
Josh?
that's okay. I'm just really enjoying the conversation, and then also I get very frustrated when it gets to the point where when we want to share our reality and then we want to receive someone else's reality. And I just want to sort of maybe take a second to ease into each other's separateness, because at this moment in time, in this illusion, in this Maya, in this existence, in this reality, we are all in separate bodies. We are all in separate minds perceiving this illusion. And the word compassion to me is to realize that my reality is not what someone else's. So I just want to really dive into the communication tool of English that we're using at the moment and how it's received, and to take some time to know that our brains are going to create another reality. And if we can share that in a way that is received, then we'll be able to understand each other. And there are 7.8 billion or so at this moment of human beings on this world trying to understand this so-called illusion or reality, whatever it is that's going on, very personal to everybody. So it takes time to understand each other's reality. And to me, that's what this community is that we're talking about. It's not the destination, but the journey of living together and understanding each other. And that journey itself takes lifetimes. So it's really hard. It's a hard conundrum to be able to share the way our brains intake this information and to pull that in, feel it, understand it, that when I shit in a toilet, it works for me. When someone else shits in a hole, which is what I was doing up in the mountains, that worked for me. But I'm not going to tell the whole world to shit in a hole, and I'm not going to tell the whole world to create a sanitation system that costs millions of dollars. There's some sort of balance between each community of what they can do with the resources that they have. And just by listening to each other's resource challenges, I'll go back to Buckminster Fuller, who said, if we can make the world work for 100% of humanity without any damage to each other or to the environment, then we can solve these problems. And that is the big challenge reason that drew me to Global Challenges Collaboration Group, is to try to make it work for 100%. And when I hear Doug say things like, if it doesn't work for everybody, then it's not going to work. That's not really possible, because there is no such thing as harmonizing the whole world at one point in time. But being compassionate enough to listen to everyone's point of views is helpful to be on this journey together, as opposed to powering over each other. And when I go on Google Earth and I look at all these different villages all over the world, and I see the way their architecture is different, the way they set up their towns with different rivers and streams, and how they utilize the ocean side versus the mountains versus the plains. It's really interesting to see how everyone harmonizes with this earth differently, and it's beautiful. And how we interact and exchange not just ideas, but exchange physical items with transactions of monetary systems. That's also very different. And so to try to power over, I feel like I'm living in America where we're powering over with a military might throughout the world by putting up over 800 military bases. It's a little bit disconcerting that it's going to work for 100% of humanity. And I'm a little bit on a rant and a tangent, but I do appreciate everybody's view of what they're living through. And I think all of us here on this conversation hold a little bit of the key to understanding each other. And I hope we can be patient through the rest of the conversation. And thank you so much, David, for giving us your view, because I miss you and it's nice to see you. And I like seeing you passionate, and I'm happy to be here. I missed everybody the last couple of weeks too. And so it's nice to be here. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for their presence and their time on this journey together. Thank you.
Hey, Josh.
can answer Colin's question. So yeah, so you go first.
You're on the phone, Joel. You can't see other people with their fingers up. I wanted to mention there's something about shit, because it's a valuable resource and some of us give it away. So, you know, if you read the permaculture book, you'll see what they're doing with shit. They're using it to grow food and compost. It's a valuable resource. Why do we use modern toilets over? Sorry, Joel.
To answer Colin's general question, why can't all perspectives be accepted and understood? Can you all see this? The little round bits are people. They represent possibilities. Within the bars and the middle center is geometric unity. The two bars are the edges of possibility that work within the functionality of geometric unity, which we can continue to do while still moving forward. All the possibilities outside of the bars are all the possibilities that lead to destruction of society, destruction of the person, or any other thing. They will continue to go around in circles, whereas the people in the middle bars will continue to progress forward and understand. That is why not all perceptions can be accepted and held as truth, because the people outside of those bars don't understand enough of the geometric unity to be fulfilling a full perception of what existence is. Their ideas and their emotion and their ego will get in the way of them attempting to see those possibilities. You can shake your head, but ask the question that you need to answered.
So are these the people who become sort of parasitic or sort of...
They want their perception accepted, and they want everybody else to accept their view, their way. But that way is destructive, and their ego won't let them accept that. They won't let them accept that somebody else has more knowledge, more perception. When those people fight the truth, disharmony comes around. Because those people will be too willful, to wanting to force their ideas onto everybody else without accepting the fundamental truths that drive everything. Existence is the geometries and the functionality. We are functions of it, in it. We do not create its rules of working. It created them. And everything that functions within that comes from that functionality.
So is this why, if we have to be fully enlightened or in contact with this unified consciousness or unconditional love, some kind of total surrender is needed?
Well, the thing is, we just need to shift our perspective. Because if our perspective is just the three bars, if we open our perspective, then everybody's within. If we let go of our own rigid ideals, everyone's in, whatever they are. Be it Colin's view, Glenn's view, Joel's view, Sam's view, there is a symphony somewhere. Might be jazz, but it's still a symphony.
I think the beautiful thing is what Josh said, that we're willing to listen to each other. I think that's the beautiful thing. If we're not willing to listen to each other, then we're in trouble.
Can we signal in some ways that we want to speak? Okay, hey, David, Joel, here's a question, okay? I could expand my perspective so wide to say, the universe is massive, the earth is but a tiny mote, and I am a mote within that mote. And so essentially, if I just accept that the universe is going to be the universe, okay, then I'll completely let go of what's going on Wall Street. I'll let go of what's going on in prisons. I'll let go of what's going on with children in cages. I'll let go of all the rape that's going on. And in fact, I can just, chop wood, carry water, eat my porridge, okay? On the flip side, I could be sitting in Wall Street on the 96th floor of some tower and say, the universe is a massive place. It's just going to be the way it is. 10,000 years from now, nothing I do is going to matter. So I might as well take my billions. I might as well hide my taxes. I might as well get that yacht. I might as well go to the islands. I might as well just buy that mansion. I might as well just, do what I want for me. That's also accepting that the universe is the universe, right? And both of them, therefore, will be truly enlightened.
Really? I'm not
Right?
sure about that.
I'm trying to discern between the two, but maybe there is no discernment. Maybe there is no difference.
How can they be enlightened?
So David, this is a question for you. So I'd like to see if David and perhaps Joel might want to respond to that. And then we'll go to Joshua and then someone else.
What makes you happiest right now, Sam?
I'm happy right now having conversation with you, enjoying my daughter, playing music, listening to music, having conversations with each of you one-on-one every once in a while, doing my whatever I do that, my company needs. I actually don't even think about happiness, okay? I'm not in pursuit of happiness. This is what's going on, and I'm not troubled by any of it, okay?
Does it harm anyone?
No. Well, maybe it does, but see, if I actually fire up my car, maybe it does harm the ecosystem. Maybe the fact that I'm driving a non-electric vehicle, and if I actually drive an electric vehicle, maybe there's other PV effects from that. So I don't really know, but I'm not intentionally trying to harm anyone, right? In fact, I'm trying to understand how I can do each day better, do me better, right? So whether or not I use a paper straw or a plastic straw, I've started asking for paper straws or no straws whatsoever. So I'm doing that a little bit, okay? But
do you feel
I'm really harming someone? I can't really answer that.
Do you feel like you're doing your best at this particular time, and the majority of the time you're doing the best that you can?
Majority of my time, no. I know I'm not at my best. I know there's more that I could be doing.
Okay. Is this you being harsh on yourself, or could you actually be?
I could actually spend less time on Facebook. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I would personally, right? You're living a reasonably fulfilling life. You are trying as hard as you can. You know that there's room for improvement, which is awesome. And you're not particularly harming anybody to the best of your knowledge. So I would say that's all round pretty amazing.
So aren't most people in that situation though?
Yes, they just have to appreciate it. So all of this is about letting go of the thoughts and feelings, the ideals, the dualities, and just getting on with things. And the more that you let go of the judgments and the I shouldn't be on Facebook so much, the less you'll be on Facebook. And the more that you'll be engaging in things that actually make you much, much happier. Because you start to plant. The roots actually preempt where they're going to go. They can almost sense where the in fact, it probably isn't sensors. It's probably the fungal networks and the tiny microorganisms telling the plants where the food sources are, where they can share consciousness with the earth, and then share consciousness with the stars. And they don't think about that. The knowledge of millions of stars shine down, take information into the plant, feed that into the neural network of mycelia, microorganisms, and everything's balanced and just is. We think we just are not.
So if everything is balanced, then I shouldn't care one way or the other, right?
Well, I think you should carry on doing the best you can. Why? Maybe have one single solitary.
Why should I care?
You don't have to. It's entirely your movie. It's your movie.
Even in balance, there is disharmony. When the light and the dark move too far apart. If you do not have the animals that consume and provide their waste to the rest of nature, how will nature consume that waste and create from it?
We've realized that there is no consumption. It's a sharing of consciousness. It's a spiral growth. Everything's a spiral growth. So, death, life, consummation, all of these things don't necessarily exist. Everything just accentuates everything else. So you poop in a composting toilet, the microorganisms break that down, turn it into superfood, which is improved from what you've put into it, especially if you bless the food. And then because you bless the food, you sort of have a different ideal about it. So you spread it on the earth, and then everything grows much more beautiful. And then you eat the food, and then you put the food out, and it becomes much more beautiful, and much more beautiful, and much more beautiful. And from that plant, you keep 100 seeds. One seed gives you 20 plants. So you've got more plants. You've invested in biodiversity, in gratitude, in living, in drawing water, in speaking, in cups of coffee, cups of tea, washing your dishes afterwards. It lightens everything that you are, and everything that the planet is, and everything that the universe is. It descends, ascends, expands inward,
Okay.
as
So
within, so throughout.
I think various people have their hands up. Josh, did you go? Did you have your hand up? And then Alex. Okay, then I'll go after Alex. Oh, Kayla. Alex, Kayla, then me.
At the AA meeting locally here, they had a picture on the wall. Wash their cup, and it was a picture of some girl in the meeting. She made this picture of a cup washing itself. It was a cup with two hands and a smiley face on it, washing itself. It was a subtle suggestion. So we can use those subtle suggestions intelligently to indicate that we are a human being. We are selfish, all selfish human beings. We have to balance that selfishness with some community impact by sharing some of our time and attention with the others in the group who have a similar focus. Over.
Thanks, Alex. Kayla?
Okay, I'm just going to speak on your behalf, Sam, and just remind everybody it's 11 past the hour. So this is my official checkout to say thank you. David, if you're going to speak next week, I would really appreciate it, just because a lot of what you say has depth, and I really wasn't mentally prepared for that, but I got a lot of really good things out of it. We are all trying our best. Nobody's, in my opinion, my humble opinion, nobody's lifestyle is better than others. Sam, you had mentioned, or somebody had mentioned, being in silence for some time. I used to do that when I was 22, just take a nice walk in the woods and be quiet for weekends at times. It doesn't have to be 3 months. It doesn't even have to be 3 days. It could just be a couple of hours. And it's amazing when you silence your chatter and just let everything be. So thank you everyone for very enlightening, very deep conversation. I love it. And Happy New Year. And we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Hey, Kayla, just for the record, I think we offered David next Saturday, but I think David was so excited that we actually gave him this particular Saturday. So that's why we've been really focused on David. Okay.
Well,
David.
I appreciate it. And I do hope you come next weekend. Because again, I'd like to mentally prepare for this, but I've got to figure out.
I will try. It's 12 minutes past 1 here. And I usually go to bed at 12 and get up at 2:30. So I've got a reasonably busy schedule, and we dig pretty much all day long. So it's harsh, but we eat as well 3 times a day. But I will try, definitely. I'll try and come again next week. Okay. I think I should make this more regular at least. If not once weekly, once a fortnight, I'll try.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to go after Kayla, and I was going to use this metaphor that if I were in your body, and if I were part of this growing cancer growth on your body, and if I were just to accept that, hey, things are just going to be the way they are, then I would just be cancerous. So if I'm this cancerous body on the face of the planet, and I know that this cancer is actually eating away at the planet, then I might consider not being part of that cancer. I have a choice, right? And I think that choice is where I'm trying to indicate acceptance with choice, or choice with acceptance. It's not just acceptance and then just, nothing else. There's choice within that acceptance. And I could choose to be a cancer cell, or I could choose to try and, be a white blood cell, Maybe that's not the perfect metaphor. Okay, sorry. but I think you get the point, right? I could choose to become healthier for this place that I'm inhabiting, or I could choose to just carry on my cancerous ways and just enjoy growing as a cancer cell and, come what may to the rest of this organism. So the point I'm trying to make is we each have choice, and you can call it dualism, you can call it duality, you can call it whatever you like, but we each choose what we want to do. And we each think we do it given our values and our understanding of the way systems work and the way the consequences might play out in our own conception of our actions.
But if you feel that you're one with the whole system and you know it and you're convinced of it, wouldn't that make it impossible to become a cancer cell?
No, because 10 billion years from now, what's the difference?
Well, there might be a difference. I mean, 10 billion years ago from now, perhaps if this system lives on, it might still live on and be even
Why
bigger.
should I care whether the system lives on if the universe is perfect?
Because you're a part of the system
And it will live on, right? The universe will live on.
Yeah.
But not all life.
What?
But not all life.
Different life would.
Not if you eradicate the life systems of the planet.
Well,
It would take billions of years to achieve the complexity it has today.
That's the choice I'm trying to indicate, right?
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is if you feel truly at one with this ecosystem and you know it and you operate from that mind space, then doesn't that naturally make you want to act in harmony with it? That has been my experience.
I'm asking this question because I could be sitting anywhere, right? I could be sitting in Jeff Bezos's office. And how would that answer look different?
Sam, what's your focal point?
My focal point is my choice.
What is your Elysium like?
Is to do good.
Okay, so you have your focal point. Move to center. Move to center.
Define good.
I do.
Is that the existential good, or is it your emotional and ego good?
It doesn't matter.
It does,
I believe
because that will lead the path.
Now,
what I'm trying to say is when you decide to make distinctions between this version of good versus that version of good, okay, then now you're actually, in a sense, judging.
Okay, let's define the existential good as existentially functional and the existential bad as existentially dysfunctional. I've already shown you the bars of which interaction happen.
No.
The light go too far.
There's much more conversation.
Can I finish my sentence, please? When the light separates too far from the dark, there is no interaction. The light becomes pure light, and so it is nothing. When the dark does the same, the opposite is true. The dark goes too far away from the light, there is no interaction, and so there is nothing. You can choose to follow either path you like. You can choose to continue the existential good, or you can continue to go to the light or the dark. That is your choice, and that will always be all living beings' choices. But the consequences of those actions, and onto the whole, will always be there. They will never be your choice, and the consequences you choose to create for others will be there. If you choose to go too far to the light, the interactions caused by that may harm others from not allowing them to have the interactions required to create strength. The same is also true of the inverse.
May I respond?
There is an ideal that we utilize, that there is only one precept, that there is only one law: do the good of all good. And with that, darkness and light are considered and brought into the fold.
Exactly.
Everything is brought into the fold, non-duality,
and
unity
who holds
consciousness.
The secret to the good.
So it has to be a harmony, basically.
Who holds
well, the thing is, there's only a few things in the universe that do what they say that they're going to do on the box, basically. So, you know, everything else is just sort of, you know, it says it's going to do this and this and this and this, and you get it home and it's half the size it's meant to be. It looks terrible, and like a McDonald's burger. When you see it on the TV and you see someone holding a McDonald's, it looks nothing like it. So basically, if you do everything for the good, that's great. Who's good? Yours? Because I want that car. Oh, I'll just knock him on the head and I'll take that car. That's the good. Who's good? If you do it for the good of all good, then it does what it says on the box. It's a good guideline, a good guideline. So if you have that as your guideline, you have a set Elysium space to center you. It's like an elastic band on your wrist to remind you that you should be less angry or something like that. If you've got that idea of your Elysium and you know that everybody has their Elysium, you can have an understanding of how important that is to them, because it snaps you out of darkness and light to a place of the good of all good. So
Yeah,
one
now we're
precept,
getting somewhere.
no 10 commandments, just the good of all good. And your mind, your monkey mind, which just thinks in patterns all the time, and asks questions and doesn't try to answer them because it's lazy. It just wants to ask questions. How does it do it? How does that connect to that? How does that connect? And the body, which just wants sensory pleasure, food. And then the two of them, you become a Wall Street banker. You've got the food and you've got the money to do it, and you can do anything you want. And then the heart, which does everything for the good of all good. It's the governance. It's the just isness of everything. Not justice from the Wall Street bankers that create policy, a pattern. Not drug addiction or any addiction. Actually honoring everything through the heart. Honoring the darkness and the light, the good of all good. Honoring the balance that it gives. Honoring that the darkness is just the light unexpanded. All of these things fall away, and just isness flows into the space. Love flows into the space of infinity, of infinities, of infinities. Omniverse ascend. Everything has its place, its space. It's a form of acceptance through gratitude. It's a form of vastness.
Yeah, now I feel we're getting somewhere, because
Probably just as good.
that would be a harmonious, life-affirming way of being, basically. Where
So you have a conductor. You have an orchestra. You have a 0-point field that creates whatever you wish, as long as it does not harm. And if you do something that will harm, the darkness holds you safely in stasis. And sometimes we hear stories of the Adolf Hitlers of the world, like scare stories of the universe, to stop us from going too far and just stay in that darkness. Go into deep rest when we are too embroiled in our condensed light, until the light within starts to flow throughout again, and we move into that space of flow. It's not rocket science. I'm a dumbass, my steelworker's son. So it's a good job it's not rocket science. It's got to be simple. People like me have to understand it, understand it. This is the thing. If we're living in the mind, we just crave patterns. We can make them out of anything, and we do not have solutions. And if we live in the body, sensory pleasures. If we live in both, Wall Street banker, Bill Gates, you open a heart, one heart, and the entire universe starts to flow through it. Words are heard, understood, understood. People feel wanted and loved. We deepen our belonging. And we stretch for the stars and beyond. What do you want? What's your, where's your center? That's your heart. Is it making you happy right now? If not, change. Are you doing the best you can, and are you being gentle on yourself? Brilliant. Have we got time for a coffee, some nice food, play guitar together, and sing round a fire? Wonderful. Is the water being drawn? Do we have enough? Are we making sure that the earth is holding enough water? We're not taking more than we need. Wonderful. Are we planting food and turning our shit into gold for our future ancestors, which we borrow the earth from? Are we honoring our past ancestors in this moment? Wonderful. Are we having a bad day? Are we wobbling out of existence and need some time? I'm here for you. That's all it's about. Are we loving as much as we possibly could, including ourselves, so that we're selfless? Wonderful. Then you're doing well, and you're happy. You're doing the best you can, and you're being gentle on yourself and those around you. Wonderful. When you have a bad day, it's acceptable. Be kind. Sam, you mentioned that we need a way. I can only see 4 people. I can see Sam, Glenn, Joel, and myself.
There's 9 of us, I believe, still here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Brilliant.
Yeah, 9.
Is there some way for future Zooms that somebody can tell me who's got the hand up, because I can't see it. I feel rude. I apologize.
It used to be easier. Zoom changes their UI every once in a while, so it's not even clear to me. But I believe if somebody holds their hand up, there's a yellow hand that shows up in the corner of their rectangle.
Only if they use the computer to do it. Otherwise, their hand is just seen.
Yeah.
Make the people
Josh, I can see yours. Sorry.
Make the people on mobile phones host, and then they'll be able to see the hand up.
I can't make anyone do anything.
Press a button. Make your finger put pressure on the mouse key.
Yeah, I think you've already done it, Sam, because I'm on the iPhone and there is a more button and it says raise and lower hand. So I think it's a setting inside of Zoom before the conversation starts to allow for the raise and lower hand.
Which I haven't changed in quite a while, by the way.
It's working. I just checked it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw yours, Josh. Ah, brilliant.
I think Colin had his hand up and then he fell out and he's back again.
Colin still has his finger up.
Yeah.
Colin, would you?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely leaning in, listening into the conversation, knowing that in this space there's many worldviews at play. So when there's claims, then you have to ask, does that actually affect what the objective is? And if there is no objective, then we're just kind of here for connection. So I see it starts with the conversation and being able to listen to one another, and then comes alignment or a project that you want to do. And whether our metaphysical understanding is in a digestible format, like Barry has a lot of work out there. There's a lot of interesting conversations to be had with Barry about history and different things. Joel's got some interesting deep roots into unity geometry or something. I think might be something that I've heard before from Eric Weinstein, and some different things in that realm, which is on the forefront of new physics, I would say. But I get the same kind of a feeling when I'm listening to the spiritual conversations, which again, I can't denounce, because how am I to say that there's not spirits and things? All I can say is what I can experience. And if people with strong opinions about the worldview, that's what I'm not trying to say your worldview is wrong. I'm trying to say, how much of your worldview do I have to accept in order to be trusted by you, to not be the guy that's going to be in the wrong place barking up the wrong trees? Because there is no all of anything when it comes to humans, that's for sure. And I think it always comes down, after conversation is allowed, real conversation, then I think the skill is in trying to define what's you mean by better, because I assume we're after better. And it really, that's the level of the conversation. Now, David said that, am I living, and Sam mentioned some examples, am I living for myself, selfishly? Or do I have some enlightenment and raise it up one bar and become a utilitarian for the community? And I'm just seeing it's jumping back between different contexts of scope. And when I listen to Joel, he's definitely within a certain scope, and it's a worldview thing. And so that's kind of the magic of these conversations, being able to listen to each other's worldviews when it matters. And even more so, do I have to believe in the constructs of someone's worldview in order to help them plant food? Or am I always going to be looking over my shoulder because I've got the devil in me? Because obviously atheists are all full of devils. So, you know, really, there's a lot of things to be considered, and that's assuming that we're all sane, whatever that means. So, you know, you got to have sane people that are willing to listen to you, that aren't going to disparage you because you think differently while you look for better. That's the challenge. Not to say, oh, you must listen to me and I blow on a piece of paper, now you should understand. It just doesn't work. It might be true, but so what? So anyway, that's kind of the thing that gets me, is like, okay, so all these philosophies are interesting, but are we here to talk?
Do you remember the purpose of me blowing on the paper, Colin?
It's in the messaging, and the messaging is, does it matter? That's the question.
The purpose of me blowing on the paper was to show you how interactive natures affect how things happen. It wasn't the piece of paper, it was how the piece of paper was reacting to the flows of my breath, the power of how hard I was breathing, and the change of rate.
The question was, what was in dispute? Because I don't say that the things that you're saying aren't true, or somebody else's religion about an afterlife isn't true, or we're going to come across hundreds of these different stories. And I'm not trying to belittle you. I'm trying to say, how much of what you're laying down do I have to pick up to be trusted by you?
Some are speaking in functional geometry. Others are speaking in emotional and egotistical abstractionality. Learn to see who are speaking from functional interactions rather than abstracted ego or emotional interactions.
Still philosophy.
No, that's very specific. That's very specific. That's like the difference between maneuvering through a room and saying the idea of maneuvering through a room. It's totally different worlds.
Yeah, you may not be able to see me, but it's about 10:33. I'm gonna check out, but first I'm gonna give you like 30 seconds or whatever, okay? And the checkout I would like to do here is, and David, this is a question for you. That's actually a question for you also, Joel, but a question for everybody, okay? And that is, I understand a large part, but not all of what you've been saying, David. I don't want to misrepresent myself, okay? I like the part about acceptance. I like the part about choice. What I'm trying to figure out is, how can I not be party to the following? And the following is this. Imagine I was 3,000 years ago sitting on Easter Island, okay? There's a big industry of chopping down trees so that we can actually take all these stones to the side of the island for whatever purpose, be it, you know, our religion, be it our economy, whatever, okay? I would like to be not one of the people sitting as a council of elders or in some village being love, being different while all of that tree chopping was happening. and all of the vegetation was being torn from the island, and eventually nothing could grow there anymore. If I'm overly concerned, that's my ego, and I'm showing my dark side, okay? But I would like to be known as someone who's trying to conceive that there's this island called Earth, and there's some industry here that's ravaging the Earth. I would like to be part of the healing of the Earth, rather than part of the one that continually rapes it and, you know, takes all of its resources and makes billionaires to become trillionaires, and then the rest of us are hungry and poor and cold and, you know, disconnected and, you know, orphaned. So that's the choice that I'm trying to exercise, okay? Whether you call it existential, whether you call it functional, whether you call it selfish, I don't give a shit, okay? That's the choice I get to make every day. And the reason I'm saying I will want to do good is because every day or every week or every month or every quarter, I want to connect with at least 2 people and say, how did I do? Oh, I was full of shit. Okay, great. I'll adjust course. I'll do better. But I'm not going to immediately sign on to anyone else's version of good because I only understand what I understand. But if I hold myself accountable and I have other loving people who hold me accountable, and we're doing this very raw, very honest, very connected, very authentic examination, did I pass up an opportunity to do good here? Or did I think I was doing good here, but I actually had these unintended consequences that turned out to be, you know, harm causing, okay? And if I examine that, every time I'm going to adjust my sails and do better. And I think that's all I can ask myself to do, and that's all I can ask anyone else to do. But whether to sign on to some good of all good, maybe, but I have to understand it first. Existential good, maybe, I have to understand it first. Functional good, maybe, I have to understand it first. I have to work from what I comprehend. Okay, and then I will grow, and then I will learn, and then I'll do better. As I know, Maya Angelou speaks, okay? So that's my checkout, is I would like not to be part of the village elders there sitting around a campfire being good while the rest of the trees are being chopped down. Over.
You already are.
Tyra?
So you've answered your own question. It's who you are, Sam. You're already the good of all good. You weigh up the good, the bad, the ugly, and you accept it as it is. And you're here, talking, working, doing. You've moved from the thinking of to the doing. And then you'll move to the being, then you'll move to the freeing. And when you move to the freeing, it starts to get interesting. You start to have more scope in what you can achieve. If you want to really do something that makes you happy. Do something that does as least damage as you think you possibly can. And then your intention's right.
I have to respond to that, okay? I have to respond to that.
Real quick, I saw Tyra's hand raised. I'm just letting David know. I don't think he saw that.
Thank you.
Yes, please let Tara speak.
Happiness is overrated. Let me just state it that very bluntly, okay? Over.
So I'd like to do my check-in and my comment and my checkout. And first of all, David, I'm sorry I was late for this, and I'm really disappointed that I didn't get to hear this entire conversation because it is definitely tickling my brain this morning. What I've heard in this short amount of time that I've hopped on is intrinsic stewardship. And I love the word stewardship because it's all encompassing. It's not just about one thing that I'm hopping on to, like saving the bees. It's about a mindset. And that's what I'm hearing here is a stewardship mindset. And each one of us has a different interpretation of that example. And I also really like, are you doing the best you can do? And I can say, yes, I am doing the best I could do. I'd like to do more, but at this moment in time, I am doing the best I can do. And that is being a steward to my own body. So thank you, David. And I would I'm going to reach out to Sam afterwards to try to get your information because I would very much like to hear more of what you have to say. And with that, I've got to go help my family make a transition. So cheers. Happy New Year, everybody. I've missed seeing you. I've been a little MIA, but you're all in my hearts. Okay, goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will attempt to ask. So the two you asked, what do you comprehend, Sam? Do you know it yourself? Do you know when you don't know things? Okay, if you know when you know things and know when you don't know them, or can accept the possibility of not knowing something, can you accept the possibility of someone knowing something? If you accept the possibility of someone knowing something you don't, they are the one to follow. If they are people that show that that something you know goes against how that functions, then they are not the people to follow. This is a decision in yourself, your personal knowledge, or the acceptance that someone else has higher perspective and knowledge. It's recognizing when those people are trying to work for the greater good, rather than working for their own personal gains or ego. And with my checkout, I've had very good time talking to you all. It's nice meeting you, David. We've got to make contact. Thank you, everyone.
It's been lovely. I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
I'm also gonna log off, but yeah, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed today and very interested in hearing more. And this all rings very true for me, and it's supported by my own experience. So yeah, let's keep doing the good for all good.
My checkout will be, I'm not actually doing anything. I'm retired. This is all just sort of hobby. We'll leave it at that.
My checkout is I'm simply enjoying the sessions because I'm learning things and I'm saving the chat. And I'm checking the chats later on in reference to the links that were shared. So the learning continues after the Zoom session. And that's the value, part of the value I get, because that enables me to contribute more information next time I'm here. Thank you all. Over.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody. I'll check out real quick and just say thank you, Sam, for putting on these conversations and for doing it so diligently and with your greater good in mind and making that vow to everybody some years ago to continue to do this. And it's so important. And I just want to say thank you for continuing to do that. And I think that is the greatest good. And for me, at least, it's very good. So thank you. And David, so nice to see you, brother. It's just beautiful to have, I know all this stuff is bubbling up in your heart, and to want to share it with this group is a blessing. So thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Josh. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I also appreciate what Sam's doing, continuing these conversations. Glad to see everybody here. I didn't hear much from Barry. I'm sure his mind is just a churning. I'd love to see a picture of what's going on. And I appreciate Josh as well for his kind words about being able to listen to each other. That's really the key. And I think that's what I'm doing here, is looking for a way to build what I call awareness for people in a conversation to adapt to each other in that conversation, so that it doesn't become a debate. I guess that's the goal. And to define better, right? Ways, if we're just going to have a fun conversation, then, put the map away and let's have a nice, fun Saturday. But I think today was very interesting. And it definitely brings a lot of that diversity and goodwill to the table. So I appreciate it. Thank you. And it'd be interesting if you do come back next week. I've heard 2 or 3 people request it. And Kayla also has a model called Telenola, which is a way we go around like you were asking for everybody to state their better good or whatever, or what would make them happy, or whatever your question was. You know, you could do 3 or 4 rounds with Kayla doing that. I think that would be probably a powerful thing where people can just share what they believe and they don't necessarily have to have a feedback on it. So, you know, that's what, because these are big messages for a lot of different people, and your intention rings true for me, and that's what I want to highlight, not the differences that I might feel with how you arrived at that conclusion. Anyway, thank you very much.
It still stands though, Colin.
What stands?
How good a cup of coffee you make, mate, and
How
whether
good
you wash up after yourself.
Be a lot
And
better.
the conversation you have around the campfire, that's more important. The coffee's just the catalyst.
Well, you have my messenger, so you can send me cones all the time, no problem. See ya.
Good to see you, man. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to my foolish jabber, and for your wonderful attention. And I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's been beautiful.
David, are you
it's really good to touch base with all of you. Good
What
night,
was that, Sam?
Silence, David?
Wait.
Are you going back?
Say again? I can't hear you.
Yeah, there's this delay here that always causes the double speak. The question was, are you going back into a long period of silence?
I find it very difficult. It's a hard thing. I usually tend to tweak things when they need tweaked. At the moment, I'm in quite a nice state of flow, so I'm just I'm building a community worm farm, so that we can take the worm juice in a huge barrel, and the second part of the worm farm, which is 6 meters by 10 meters, I'm going to now actually breed koi in. So that's a project to complete, and I'm pretty sort of happy about that. It's in the middle of the food forest. I'll send some videos. I don't know where I can share a group of videos of our space. I'd like you all to see it. It's quite beautiful, just so you know where I live, where I'm at the moment. But it's a very nomadic lifestyle. If this changes, we just sort of move somewhere else. It's a beautiful way of living. It's a bit like sort of bees visiting flowers and then sharing the pollen with other flowers so that the garden grows beautiful. It's an enjoyable lifestyle.
How many of you are in this group that moves from place to place?
We're independently interdependent. It depends. We came from Gaia Ashram to the shamanic retreat center. There was 15 of us. There was 22 at Gaia. Then there was 4 of us left. Then there was 2 of us moved here, and now there are 10 of us, part of an international community of monks, which there are 200 monks. Then there are 2 from Life Chanuen community. There are 5 in Thailand, but obviously globally there are thousands of monks and thousands of the Life Chanuen group, and then all of the others, all of the different denominations that have lived together with us, and we've learned and grown together. So I'm quite used to this sort of space in real time, the acceptance and listening to people's fears and trials and tribulations, and just being loving towards them and functional. Imagine if we were drawing water together, digging earth together, and propagating plants together on top of just this meeting and speaking. Imagine the depth of community that would form. But we're sort of doing that. Although we don't see it, it's as if we're working on different sectors of our garden, and then coming together in the community space and sharing that consciousness and rising as we do it. You know, growing inward, rooting down, and growing outward into the universe. So we are actually acting as a functional real community in the real time and in the cyberspace. So this is a true growth. And it's a level of trust. for us all to return and be welcomed, etc. We need to get to know each other and know each other's nuances. I know I have many, like talking lots.
Okay.
But again, guys, thank you very much. It's 1:49 a.m. So I'm gonna go
You
back
got to
to
get
bed.
up in like 41 minutes, huh? Something like that.
I am not going to go on arms round today. I'm going to go back to bed and sleep until I wake up. I'm not even. I'm going to turn the alarm off. And if I come back next Saturday, I'm going to do the same again on the Sunday morning. So,
Anybody else to check out? David, you just did it, right?
with that, thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful morning wherever you are. Have a wonderful time, and I will see you next Saturday.
Yeah,
Okay.
Alex is also in the middle of the night, by the way.
Ah, Alex, yes. What time is it there, Alex?
What time is it here? It's 4:50, 10 to 5 in the morning.
Wow.
It'll be getting light soon.
Good to see you again, Alex. Thank you. And good to see your face, Barry. I've never seen you before. And Sam, thank you again. Thank you to everybody that's still on here. I can only see 4 of you. Thank you. And have a wonderful morning.
Good day.
Barry, I think you're the only one who hasn't had an opportunity to check out. You can if you like to.
I'll wait, Barry. Sorry.
Oh, Colin is right. I didn't say very much today, and that's not unusual. There was a time in my life, I'm 75, there was a time in my life when I talked a lot. And then somewhere along the way, and in more than one occasion, people were candid enough to tell me that I was talking faster than they can listen and talking faster than they can think. And it took me a long time to understand really what that was about. But gradually, I stopped using oral communication and gradually morphed into non-spoken communication, writing and other modes of communication that didn't require real-time listening. And I like to think that switching out of the spoken word into the written word and the visual presentations makes my contributions more valuable than they would have been otherwise. It turns out that most people talk faster than I can listen. I'm a very slow listener. And most people speak faster than I can think. So my thinking runs behind what they're saying. And as a result, this Zoom talking heads model is my least favorite mode of communication. I don't know that people are getting very much out of me sitting here and trying to keep up with everything, or if they're getting anything out of me putting up slides and items in the chat. But for me, trying to find the best mode of communication that works both directions is a goal, because I don't want to use the modes that aren't working for me and the other people. So, don't be afraid to say to me, you're over my head, or you're talking too fast, or the content of the material takes more time to process. I've been learning that, for decades, and learning, not to use modes of communication that just aren't very efficient. By the way, I like Sam. Sam and I both went to Stanford, and when Sam talks, I can follow him. He talks in my language and at a rate that I can follow, but and so do other people. Joshua is kind of on the same page as me too, but most people aren't. And most people, I'll sit there and I go, I have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, I'll write down some words in the chat, and maybe I'll go back and think about it later. But I don't want to stop anybody from having, the oral mode. That's fine. Not against that. I'll stop there.
So I know I did already check out, but I just have to have a minor rejoinder to that one. That is, David, Joel, I really do lean into what you guys are saying, because part of me really wants to understand what you guys are offering, okay? I do know that I will understand better if I understand the words you use and how those words are put together and what's behind them. And that's the reason for my questions, okay? It's not to call anything into question. is to really understand more deeply. Okay.
It would be nice to have that call, Sam, at some point. I'd love to chat.
So did you want to do this also next Saturday? Because I know that you did take most of today as well. If there's more, take more, you know?
Let's you and I can chat at some point if you're free, and we'll talk about it if that's okay. I don't know. Yeah. I'd like to. I don't want to disrupt the flow. I think that everybody's got a rough idea of where I am in life, etc., etc. And the most important part is us all interacting, learning to trust each other, learning to move in many directions at the same time, gently and smoothly, and to honor each other and be grateful. And I think everybody does that here. Yeah. And I don't want to take too much of that space. It needs to get back to a form of normality and flow. And it was more an introduction than anything. But we can talk about it, Sam, definitely. I would.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay.
Okay, guys.
Last
Thank you,
remark.
everybody.
Going once.
Bedtime.
Going twice. Going 3 times. Sold to the gentleman in Thailand. Okay.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.